my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Douglas Frank. He has become such an asset to this entire country, and now we have the privilege of him helping us in Josephine County. Douglas Frank is a world-renowned physicist with 60 peer-reviewed scientific publications, including cover and feature articles in the world's leading scientific journals. His PhD is in surface electroanalytical chemistry, which combines chemistry, physics, electronics, and advanced computing and mathematics for the manipulation and investigation of molecules on surfaces. He left university academics in 1996 and has done extensive consulting, inventing, and technical manufacturing, including electron microscopes, laser scanners, and automated precision manufacturing and quality control devices. He is internationally known for his contributions to the cleaning and polishing industry and also the bowling sport and manufacturing industry. In the 1990s, Dr. Frank helped to establish a special school for extraordinarily gifted youngsters near Cincinnati, Ohio, where he served as a math and science department chair for 20 years. There, he taught their most advanced mathematics, science, and computer programming classes. He also directed the music program at the school, and in 2018, took a dozen high school boys to Vienna, winning the national choral competition. Since December of 2020, Dr. Frank has been working incessantly for election reform and grassroots teams in over 40 states, earning the title of the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity. He's met in person with dozens of secretaries of state, attorneys general, legislators, and hundreds of local election officials. He has testified formally in several legal and legislative proceedings. Dr. Frank was featured in two of Mike Lindell's 2021 documentaries, Scientific Proof and Absolute Interference, because he discovered several of the algorithms being employed to manipulate our elections. Dr. Frank is widely known for his informative and engaging presentations in a wide range of topics, including the COVID pandemic, climate change, and the complementary relationship between science and faith. He served as a church music minister for 40 years. He married his high school sweetheart, and they have 3 children in their 20s, including his popular special needs daughter, Nellie. Join me in welcoming Dr. Douglas Frank.
Thank you. Thank you. When somebody asks you for your bio and you give it to them, you don't expect them to read it all. Aww. You expect them to like pick a few things out of it that makes sense. Aww. But that's okay. Thank you for that. People like, well, what do you do, Dr. Frank? What did you do in your career? And lately, most of what I do, I'm not allowed to talk about. It's covered by NDAs. But some of them have expired, and so I've begun to talk about it so you can kind of get a feeling for the kind of guy I am. If you ever heard that Bounty is the quicker picker-upper, it wasn't. I'm the one who built the machine that measured that, which is why they took it off the market for 6 years as that ad out of the market, and now it's back again because they fixed it. Okay. But Procter & Gamble was being sued by a European company saying, no, we're quicker than you are. And so they said, Dr. Frank, can you come measure this? So I built a machine for them that measures that, and they use it as their standards around the world in their manufacturing plant to quality control and whatnot. And it's a long story, but they liked what I did. And so then Procter & Gamble purchased TAM brands. You women will understand the brand TAM brands, feminine hygiene. And so they had me build all their machines that develop all their testing equipment for their feminine products. So I know I've touched all you women in a very special way. And whenever you're using those products, you can say, thank you, Dr. Frank, for helping with this. But anyway, so it's all the way from very simple things all the way up to very complicated things. I've built fancy electron microscopes for special high-tech applications in the Army and the Air Force and things. So it's a whole range of things. I left academics in '96 to work for myself. I just couldn't stand academics anymore. It was just full of the wrong kind of people and the wrong kind of motives and incentives. I just couldn't stand it. So I left and started a business. I did a couple of businesses. In 2017, I basically closed down my company, moved out in the country. I lived out in Ohio and My wife and I were caring for her mother. She was passing away. So we got a big house with a big flat first floor, and took care of her until she passed away. And I have the whole basement, which is a very large area, is my man cave and my lab. And so I continue to work and continue to support myself that way. Although in 2020, when I was asked by Pennsylvania to work on their elections with them, I told my wife, honey, I'm going to set aside my income for 6 months so we can save the country, and then I'll start making money again. Well, it didn't work out that way. I'm still here pounding the pavement. The last year I did 300 talks like this around the country, about 500,000 airline miles, and this year I'm right on track for that same thing, although my schedule's a little different this year because I had to learn how to do this. Because I'm a scientist and I believe in truth and logic and evidence, and I think that if I show you truth and logic and evidence that you'll do the right thing. Forgive me for being naive, okay? Okay, that's what you get when you run your own business and you come from academics, is you think you can control all these things. Okay, so I had to learn that, right? Okay, so I did. So let me just tell you a quick story at the beginning, because it sets the stage for some of the data I'm going to show you. So right after the 2020 election, the state of Pennsylvania invited me in as part of a team of 6 people to analyze their elections. And you might remember that Doug Mastriano had a special hearing. It was nationally televised, and Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and several witnesses were presenting all kinds of evidence. Well, they needed somebody who's rigorous and analytical to come in and analyze everything, and so they did. They invited me in. I was part of a team of 6 people. By the legislature, they invited me. And I uncovered in the very first day they handed me the data. In the first day I covered massive amounts of anomalies. Something's really wrong with this. And I showed it to them and they were, wow, yes, please. And so I was given access to anything I asked for. I had subpoena power through the legislature of Pennsylvania. It's the only full forensic audit we've had in the country. Maricopa was not a full forensic audit. Maricopa was, well, we're going to let you do this, but we're going to keep the Splunk logs, and we're going to keep the routers, and we're going to, you can't do any more canvassing. And in other words, they limited what you could do. I had no limits in Pennsylvania. I could do anything. I had access to everything. So let me just summarize one quick summary, and then I'll give you one example. So when the election was certified in 2020 in Pennsylvania, they had 765,000 more ballots that they had tallied than they had voters. Okay, so obviously there's something wrong with that election, yes? Okay, that was a clear, blatant, in-your-face problem. But this is more relevant. And I discovered this, and what it was 1 month before the election in 2020, the voter rolls in the county that I was focused on, which was Montgomery County. That's where the 4 Supreme Court cases from Pennsylvania were that went to the Supreme Court after the election. That was my focus county. A month before the election, 50,000 people were added to the rolls, who all voted, and then 25,000 of them were removed from the rolls by the end of November, and the second 25,000 removed by the end of December. And that was puzzling to me. I didn't understand that. I was new to this game, and it's like, wait a minute, I don't understand. And so I subpoenaed the Secretary of State, Bookvar. I said, why are you removing these voters from the rolls? And her answer, one sentence answer, because they moved away. And I hadn't even thought of that, okay? So I went and looked it up, and she was right. All 50,000 of those voters had moved away 10 years before. So what was happening was they were activating previous people from the rolls, inactive voters. They were reactivating them, adding them back into the rolls, and then people were stuffing ballots for those people. Those people weren't actually the ones voting. And then automatic systems that clean the rolls, because people moved away, were removing the voters automatically. So I was like, well, who did that? So I asked for the copy of the logs on the day when I noticed the big jump in the voter rolls, and they gave me a copy of the rolls. And about 1:30 in the afternoon, somebody logged into their voter rolls using the Hillary Clinton campaign credentials and added these people to the rolls. And I was like, well, wait a minute. This is 2020. What does Hillary Clinton campaign have to do with 2020? That's back in 2016. So I asked the legislature about it, and they said, oh, we know what that is. They said back in 2015, we hired Hillary Clinton campaign to write an API. That's a program that runs on your phone or a tablet to allow people to register voters, like on campus and at rock camp concerts and things like that. And she still has login credentials, apparently. Okay, sorry, I appreciate the audience. All right. She still has, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, if she still has access, who else has access? So I didn't do this next step, but we put a team on it. We downloaded 2 months of the voter rolls for the state voter rolls, 32 different organizations, non-government organizations, NGOs, all had back-end access to the voter rolls in Pennsylvania. In other words, they could add and remove voters at will, and all you have to do is, if you're behind in an election, you just add a voter and stuff a ballot for them. I mean, it was ridiculous, okay? So anyway, so here I am. It's the middle of December now. I'm saving the country. Woohoo, woohoo. We're proving that there's election fraud. I'm so excited. I think we're really gonna, because the system they're using is similar to the one in Michigan and Georgia and Wisconsin, and it's like, we're saving this, we're saving this. Well, the legislature came back to me and said, wow, these rolls are really corrupt. We're gonna throw out the voter rolls for our entire state of Pennsylvania. So I was confused by that at first, and they awarded the contract to rebuild the voter rolls on December 20th, 2020, to a Pennsylvania company. They needed to get the voter rolls all remade in time for the spring elections. Okay. 3 days later, December 23rd, that firm was bought by Zuckerberg. And then when that happened, it just took my breath away. I didn't understand it. Wait a minute. 20% of the manipulation we saw in the rolls was being done by CTCL, the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Wait a minute, you just put the fox right back in the hen house, okay? I was shocked by that, and I was angered, and we had some pretty long discussions with the legislature, but what was really happening is they weren't trying to fix it, they were trying to cover it up, okay? And I was naive. I thought, they're a Republican majority, they must be good. Okay, and okay, so I had to learn that lesson. So I was pretty frustrated about that, and I can go on with Pennsylvania story, but I think I've told you enough there. The next state I did was Florida. Like in January, I was working in Florida, found almost as much fraud in Florida as there was in California. Went down, showed the Secretary of State, showed DeSantis in his office, went down to Mar-a-Lago, showed all these people. They just covered it up. You didn't ever hear about it, did you? Okay. I went to North Carolina next. You see, are you starting to notice a pattern? I was picking the most conservative states I could get data for because I was assuming, naive, Rube, Dr. Frank, was assuming that the Republican states were the good ones and then those would be the clean elections. I was wrong. And I spent all of 2021 basically traveling the country, meeting with senior executives, meeting with AGs, meeting with secretaries of states, showing them the fraud in their own state, showing them that I could hack into their election right in front of their face, and nothing. State after state after state. So I had to get educated because I thought I could fix the country top down. Forgive me, I learned. I spent all of 2022 doing this because I've learned. Not because I'm Mr. Smarty Pants, but because when you bang your head against a wall 30 times, you learn not to do it the next time, right? I mean, you learn what doesn't work. And I started learning from the grassroots how you build a movement. Why? Because it was working. This is how we're going to take our elections back, not from the top down, but from the bottom up. So I'm going to show you that today. And I just want to tell you right now, are you ready? Josephine County, you are the county in Oregon. You need to be the county in Oregon like Shasta County is in California. In Shasta County, California, we are completely back on paper. We have paper poll books, we have paper ballots, hand-marked, hand-counted, hand-tallied, hand-reported. Full transparency throughout the whole thing. And they have 75,000 voters in their county, and you only have 60. So there's no excuse. You can do it here, okay? And California is just as wackadoodle as your government, okay? So maybe you're a little worse. But you see where I'm going, and this is where it's going. Now, there's a strategy for that. It's one thing for me to say it. It's another thing to tell you how. And I have a strategy. It's called 7 Steps, and I'm going to go over that a little bit today. But I've had the pleasure for last night meeting over at the clubhouse. You guys have a great clubhouse. There's a lot of energy in this county. You have an outstanding team of people. Holly is kicking butt. I want to work with you more. I want you to be successful. You are the county. I'm telling you now. You are the county that can change the state, and I want you to be it. So I want to help you. So I'm just coming right out and telling you that. All right. If you want to follow me, if you want to follow my work, this is how to follow me. Take a picture of this screen. This is my social media and my email. I don't have a website. I tried for a while, but everybody hates me. And my website's always going down, and I just don't have time for that. I'm busy doing this. So I just post on social media, and I read my email and messaging. So this is how to follow what I'm doing as I travel the country. Anyway, I'll just give you a chance to take that picture. You got it? And if you can't get a hold of me, talk to Holly. All right. So I'm glad to be here with you guys. This is my second time in Josephine, I think, yes? Third time? That's right. Okay, that's right. Last time I was over at the gym, at the high school. Hold on, yeah. Holly picked me up. Jim was in the car too. But I noticed that day that there was tampon machines in the men's bathroom when I was over at the high school. So I posted about it on social media. You're in an Oregon high school when... So anyway, that's preposterous, of course. I grew up on an Angus ranch. I know the difference between an Indy and an Audi. Okay, so Josephine County. I met your clerk last time I was here, Rhiannon, and she's going to be. I can tell she's going to drag her feet on this. But guess what? She works for you. Okay. And if she's not going to do what you ask her to do, then replace her, because she works for you. You're the government. Start being the government. Start acting like it already, would you? I'm being playful with you. Okay. So this is really my objective. I want to change the way you think. I want to change the way you think about our country, which is your country. You got to think differently about it. I run into this all the time. Your relationship with your country. I want you to think differently about your relationship to your state, your county, your church, your community. I want you to think differently than you are right now. Everybody's kind of been lulled into this incorrect way of thinking, and I need to change that. The way you're living there. How many of you heard, you don't get involved in politics, it's messy and nasty, right? My whole life I've been said, you don't want to get into politics, that's horrible, yucky, mucky stuff. Well, Plato says, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And that's exactly where we are. It's not just intellectually inferior. These are morally and ethically inferior people. I don't know you, but I trust you more than I trust your governor. I would rather you be the governor of this state, because these offices attract the worst people. Because moral and ethical people and business people and conservative people who are out there working, raising our kids, earning a living, all right? We don't want to stop doing that to do government. Government's a dumb thing. We want to minimize government, right? That's the way we think. The problem is we have to do our civic duty. We have to, if we're going to be an experiment in self-government, we have to be the self-government, and we haven't been. We've been asleep at the wheel, right? For too many years, we've become apathetic and complacent. So the problem with this is that we have given up our responsibility, our civic duty. That's what's really happened. So elections are really just a symptom of the problem. They aren't the real problem, but they're a big symptom because of our elections, they're imposing all this other crap on us. And I like to tell people that I'm going around waking everybody up. If you saw that movie, got to move my. There we go, The Matrix. We're red pilling everybody. You got to wake up and realize what the world really is. Okay, if you don't, and you already know this, you're steadily, incrementally losing our liberty every day. Can you imagine? You're too young to remember, but the rest of us, you know what we've lost. You've experienced it. You've lived it in your life. I have 3 kids, 25 years old. My daughter Nellie, has Down syndrome. She's the famous one. And then my son Daniel, he's 23, and my son Derek. They're smart boys, They believe what I say, but they don't understand what they've lost. They don't get it. People say, we got to get the young people involved in this. They don't have a clue. What they're thinking about is LGBT stuff. That's what's driving that generation. They don't realize they've already lost their liberty, and we have to get it back. So it's up to us to fix this. So there's this guy, here we go. Yes, okay, got it. A guy named Trevor Loudon. I was traveling around California with him. He says we're 80% of the way complete with the Marxist Revolution in our country. And it's now or never, guys, right now. It's not the next election. It's right now. In fact, we're already past the point almost of no return. We have to go back and take on. It's also our churches are a wreck. It's not just our government. Our churches are a wreck. I was just down at the GOP, California GOP on Saturday, speaking at the Salt and Light Council. It's nice to see churches beginning to wake up around the country too. It's not just a civics revival, it's also a religious revival we're experiencing around the country. So I just have to tell you this story because it's so perfect and it sets up so much of what I do. So I was up in Wisconsin recently speaking at a bar, a tavern. There were about 150 people. It was great. It's fun to talk in taverns because everybody's happy. It's fun to talk. And so after my talk, people were lining up in the center aisle, and this lovely senior couple came up to me, and the lady says, Dr. Frank, she says, can we pray for you? I said, yeah, I love it. So she lays hands on me, and her husband lays hands on me, and little did I know she was a real prayer. And she starts working up a lather and getting louder and louder and louder. And as she gets louder, the volume comes down in the tavern because everybody's listening, right? And then everybody starts joining in. It's like a little prayer meeting and a revival. It was really awesome. I loved it. It was great. And you can tell she's starting to wind up her prayer, and she says, and thank you, Lord, for giving us Dr. Frank and that he's standing for truth and fighting the battle against Goliath. And Lord, we just thank you for giving him such a big slingshot. And Lord, we just pray that you'll give him really big stones. She didn't realize what she'd said, but this is a tavern. So everybody is snickering at this point, right? And she winds up her prayer and she opens her eyes and everybody's got a funny look on her face because we're all trying not to laugh, right? Because it's a real prayer. And she looks at me bewilderedly and I just said, you just asked God to give me really big stones. And the whole place bursts into laughter and she turns beet red as a tomato. She's like, oh. It was hilarious, okay? It was hilarious. But I love this story because as we were driving home afterwards, I was thinking about it. She's exactly right. We have to have really big stones. When David went to the battlefield, he was not going to the battlefield to fight Goliath. He went to the battlefield to bring his brothers lunch, okay? He shows up, and there's this big oaf out in the field insulting their God. So he goes to his brothers and he says, what's up? Get out there and take care of business. And what did they tell him? Go back and take care of the sheep. The problem wasn't Goliath. The problem was the children of Israel were hiding in the hills. That was the problem. Goliath is a symptom. Because all it took was a little shepherd boy to go out there and stand in front of Goliath and say, today, the Lord's going to deliver you into my hands. And he kicked his butt, right? And he cut his head off. After he slew Goliath, then the children of Israel chased the Philistines out of the land, the scripture says. I love that scripture. Okay, so the point is, that is where the situation we're in right now, is you're all hiding in the hills. Stop hiding in the hills. It's time to come out and fight. You know, and I know, I looked it up. This is how big Goliath was versus Daniel. It's a scary thing, okay? But I'm not the only David out there. You got to join me. We got to have a bunch of Davids out here. Elections are not going to be simple. It's going to be tough. Now, I'm going to tell you another kind of story because I'm teaching you what I want you to walk out of here thinking, and I'm going to show you some data too. So, we're upside down. Because what do you do when Antifa comes to town? You call the sheriff. I know you guys are an exception to this. No, you don't call the sheriff. You grab your rifle. You call your neighbors. You meet Antifa in the street, right? That's what they did in Coeur d'Alene. And I understand that that's what you guys did here too. Is that true? Yeah. That's the right response, okay? This is how I know I'm in the right county. This is the right place. You're not waiting for the government to defend you. You defend you, okay? And by the way, was there any violence that day? Oh, interesting, huh? Okay. Whereas when people don't show up to defend their county, guess what? Then you have riots, and you have vagrancy, then you do have violence, and you have all sorts of criminal behavior. That's why we have a Second Amendment. You're supposed to be defending your community. You're not supposed to be waiting for the sheriff. If you need to call the sheriff, you call him the next day to clean up the mess. It's your job it's your job to defend yourself. You need to be being the government. By the way, this was from Coeur d'Alene. It's the first county I'd been in. I've been in about a dozen counties across the country where the people have defended themselves, and there's no violence. And guess what? Their city is magnificent and clean because they defend it. That's what's supposed to be happening. Well, it's the same with our elections. If you have a problem with your elections, call your legislator. No, you're the government. Fix it. Okay? You're not waiting for somebody else. If you're waiting for somebody else, you're going to be waiting a long time. It's the same way with Antifa. If you're waiting for the sheriff to defend you, nothing's going to happen. You need to be defending yourself. You need to be being the government. So that's what I'm basically saying. Defend yourself because you are the government. You got to start being the government. That's my point. All right. Now, that's what the 7 steps are all about. It's about you being the government. America is an experiment in self-government. No one's coming to save us. We're the people we're waiting for. It's us. It's now. It's us. End of story. Until we step up, ain't nothing going to happen. So, in a nutshell, this is what's wrong with our elections. This one, by the way, I noticed you guys made copies. Thank you for doing that, of the 7 steps. And I put this image right on the inside, right at the top. I love this thing. It's in the Capitol building of Wisconsin. It's in the dome. You can tell it's in the dome. It's 100,000 pieces of glass. It's a 100-years-old mosaic. It's a picture of Lady Liberty. And with one hand, she's pointing towards heaven, because that's the inspiration and source of our liberty. Heaven is where our liberty comes from. With her other hand, she's protecting the ballot box, because that's how we protect our liberty. And that's why we're losing our liberty, because we're not protecting the ballot box. We've given the ballot box to somebody else. For too many decades, we've been paying other people to run the government. We've been paying other people to teach our children. We've been paying other people to run our elections. Well, people are starting to wake up about education, which is why so many people are pulling their kids out of public and starting to homeschool, right? Why? They're protecting their children. If you give it to somebody else, that critical job, don't be surprised if it doesn't come out very well, all right? We need to be doing this job ourselves. We need to be running the elections ourselves. Now I'm going to make a strong statement, and I'm going to give you a couple examples for today, so I'm not just going to make this statement only. In every state in America, our elections are now centrally controlled by the state. 20 years ago, when you voted, you would go to a local precinct. Well, maybe it's 25 for you guys because you did mail-in before most. But 25 years ago, you would go to a local precinct, you'd fill out a ballot, and they'd count it right there. You were in charge of your elections. You ran your own elections. And, maybe there are exceptions. But that's basically the way we did our elections on a single day in America. And we all counted the ballots and reported the tallies that night. I mean, that's what we did. For 200 years, we did it that way. By the way, we were only 10% smaller then. Okay? So it's not that big of a deal. Okay? They say, we can't do it. We can't possibly do it. It'd be impractical. We did it for 200 years, and all of Europe does it. But anyway, in every state now, it's now centrally controlled. And one of the ways you can prove it's centrally controlled is when we talk to Rhiannon, we're going to show her that she's not in control of her own voter rolls. And we'll corner her on that, and she'll have to admit it. So you'll see that's the way we're going. But anyway, so to take back our country, we're going to have to get rid of the machines. We're going to have to perform our elections with our own 2 hands and our own 2 feet. Until we, what I mean by that, with our own 2 hands, we're going to have to be voting with our hands, not with the stupid machines. And with our own 2 feet, get your butt into the polls and vote. If you can go to the grocery store or a football game, you can vote, okay? It's not a big deal. Get her done. Okay, so it's one thing to say. It's another thing to say how. So that's what the 7 steps are. And it's a 2-hour training course to teach you this in more detail, but I'll just give it to you in summary now. If you want to see a longer slide version of it, it's called Follow the Data with Dr. Frank. That's my Rumble channel. Follow the Data with Dr. Frank. I've got like a longer version of this. But basically it boils down to this. Education is key, but the fix is local. I don't want you to try to fix Oregon. I want you to fix Josephine County. Okay? You can, that's where your power is. You don't have power at your capital. You have power here, fix it here. Education is key. I'm teaching you. You're going to be teaching your neighbors, and you can fix it locally. That's the whole point. Now, the John Birch Society saw me doing this around the country, and they said, Dr. Frank, you're like preaching our message. And they liked it. So they're printing 1 million copies. These are going to start coming out next month all around the country. They're the ones who asked me to put together the trifold. And that was a hard job for me, because really this is like a book. This is like a book length of information. And I'm trying to think, how can I come up with a simple summary of what we're doing? So this is a very simple summary, but in essence, you start by getting connected. Why? Because you don't have time to relearn all the lessons that I've learned. We don't have time. I already wasted a year of your life learning on 2021. Don't relearn those lessons. Get connected with Holly, get connected down at the clubhouse. What a great place. We will bring all the wisdom we can to you to help you be successful that we've learned around the country. I've been in 46 states now, 800 counties, boots on the ground. I've learned a lot. Let me pass that on to you. Okay? That's important. The next thing is and by the way, getting connected, that's Cause of America. That's on the back of that. That's Mike Lindell's organization to help support you. By the way, I was on the phone with them today, and I got your NCOA today for you, so I'll give that to you. NCOA is National Change of Address Registry. In other words, I'm going to be able to give you a list of everybody who's moved in or out of your county for the last 4 years. And Mr. Lindell paid for that subscription. So we do that. That's just another reason to get connected, right? That's why I'm bringing it up now. We bring resources to you, and wait till you see the other file I've been working on all day for you. All right. So anyway, get connected. Next thing is you got to get organized. As I travel the country, it follows a pattern. This is my 3rd time back here. It seems like the first time I show up, I just plant a little bonfire. And I come back 2 months later and throw gasoline on it. And maybe the 3rd time I'm back, things are really happening. That's sort of the nature of grassroots movements. They just kind of take a while to kind of get going, I've noticed. And the biggest, most important thing at the beginning is don't try to do it yourself. There are a lot of people that think they can do it themselves. It's a big job. And I was watching Holly today across the street, just kicking butt. Maybe it was yesterday, just delegating. There's so much to do. Don't try to do this yourself. Form a team. And we were figuring out all the team members. I don't need to go through them. But you need at least 7 streams of thought. And I've learned if you don't have those, you don't succeed. Next thing is, actually this is old, it should say formulate a plan. Every county is different. So for example, in your county, I just spoke to a couple of your commissioner candidates, and I've met one of your commissioners before, and I've met Rhiannon before. Rhiannon. You have your own challenges here that are unique to your county. And so I'm not going to rubber stamp a strategy here that was in another county. You have to figure out what works in every county. It's a game of chess. And every game of chess is a little different. So we have to come up with a plan that fits your local situation, your local laws, your state laws, all that sort of stuff. Next thing is there's a lot of work. There's no silver bullet. Shasta County took us a year's worth of work, and I'll go over that a little bit to give you an example. And this is a really important notion, and I was joking with everybody last night. You don't win with evidence, you win with a movement. You have to have a movement. However, you need data to build a movement on, because right now, if you go out and tomorrow you say, man, I heard Dr. Frank, what a great talk. I was so inspired. I want to go out and do stuff. And all your friends are going to say, another conspiracy wingnut, okay? You don't win with just your words. You need some evidence right now. You need a credible movement. So I'm going to help you with that. I'm going to help you find actual evidence of fraud in your county, and then you're going to build a movement around that. And as you find that evidence, I'm going to help you review that and organize it and decide how to proceed with you, because I've done that around the country. I just give you what I usually find. For example, I was just in Texas last month. They got 4 counties that have been out canvassing and finding fraud. And they would say, we're all ready, Dr. Frank, we're ready for the next step. Come down and review our progress. 2/3 of what they found isn't fraud. They thought it was. We don't want anything going public that has any question about it. It has to be perfect fraud, unassailable fraud, because as soon as you go public with your results, if you have a single error, you could give them 1,000 perfect cases of fraud and one of them's bad. That's what the media is going to use and tear you apart. My father used to say, if you have 10 arguments, use 5, because the 6th one is weaker than the 5th one. Use what you got. Keep it clean. Keep it pure. Unassailable cases of fraud. That's super important. And then let's plan a strategy going forward, and we'll bring resources to that too. Like, we'll want to meet with your sheriff. And sheriffs don't understand elections. They're good at issuing affidavits and subpoenas and arresting child beaters and all that sort of thing. But they don't really know how to prosecute election fraud, especially when it's so technical. So we're not asking them to do anything. And they usually shy away when you approach the sheriffs. But they're like your most important person, I think, in this, because they have constitutional authority in your county. And so we bring other sheriffs in to help. And I work with Sheriff Mack and the CSPOA, and we'll bring other sheriffs to help you with that transition to your local empowerment. And I'll just give you one example so you can understand how this works. Shasta County, we found 350 cases of fraud. We showed it to the sheriff. We showed him that he validated that they were actual cases of fraud. And I'll give you another example of that in a minute, but I'm trying to take you through that part of the strategy. Then what we did is we were able to get one of the 5 commissioners on board, because we showed him the fraud too, and he's like, wow, that's obviously fraud. We got to deal with this problem. But the other 4, because they have 5 commissioners in their county, the other 4 were reluctant. So what we started doing is we started packing the commissioner meetings every month. This room would be full and people standing in the hallway, overflowing the meeting. And the people would come up and they would read into the official record actual cases of fraud, one after another after another. They cannot withstand that. This is because every one of those cases of fraud is disenfranchising one of the citizens from their ballot. Each one of them nullifies somebody else's vote, right? And so during that time, the second commissioner flipped, because you can't withstand that kind of evidence. But the other 3 were holding firm. So then what we did is we had the supermoms get organized. That's why you need a team. And they started picketing in front of their houses. And I remember telling my stepmom, the ladies were out picketing. She says, no, oh, that's so rude, Dr. Frank. You would go picket them at their homes? This is a war. Okay? All right? It's a First Amendment war. And we have to win the First Amendment war, or it's going to be a Second Amendment war. So let's win the First Amendment war. So let's use every free speech we got. Okay? These are our weapons at our disposal. So we started picketing in front of their houses. And there's a grandma, was one of those 3 commissioners. She was driving her kids to school, and we had a team of supermoms waiting for them. They all had signs, so-and-so isn't defending our constitutional rights. And all the kids in the school see it. So, of course, they're all going home telling their parents, isn't this great warfare? This is awesome. That she resigned the next day. And then a second one resigned in sympathy. In other words, we built a movement, okay? The pressure got them to quit. But because we had a movement and community activism, we also then had an election that we could win. And so we won one of the seats. We didn't win both. We won one of the seats, so now it was 3-2. See where this is going? So that's how we were able to then begin making progress. And there's a whole strategy there, which I don't want to go into. But the point is, it's a war, and we use all of our weapons. And we didn't do that willy-nilly. It started with a team. It started with a war plan. We implemented the war plan. And in the end, they have paper poll books that people sign in. They have paper ballots that people fill out. They hand count those paper ballots. They hand tally them. And they hand report. Everything is transparent. They're in control of their elections. The reason I like paper is because Doug Frank can't hack into your election from Ohio anymore if you're on paper. If you're on electronics, I can hack into your election from Ohio, and that's what we don't want. So anyway, that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you want to hear a longer version, I tell more. I just was at Lindell's summit in August. It's on frankspeech.com. You can look at the 7 steps. You can hear about an hour version of me discussing that. But really, when I do the 7 steps, I try to customize it to the local group, because we are actually doing strategy. So we'll do that probably tomorrow. One of the early steps is canvassing. And canvassing is important. I'm a little divert here. So I have the voter history for your county. all the way from 2014 to 2020. I know every resident and which elections they voted in. So it's like 85,000 people. I'm going to give you that list. But I'm going to help you sort it, and I'm going to help you pick out the suspicious addresses. And you're going to go knock on those doors. And it'll go something like this. You'll say, hi, I'm Doug Frank from the Election Integrity Project. And it says here in the voter rolls that 6 people live here, and 5 of them voted. Can you verify that? And Mr. and Mrs. Smith look at that and they say, well, it's just me and Mama here for 5 years. Who are those other 4 people? And who are the 3 people that voted? See what happens? At that moment, you just made a convert. They believe in election fraud because the voter rolls show that there's fraud happening from their house. And they're unhappy about it, and they tell everybody in their neighborhood. So you just converted a neighborhood. Right? This is evangelism. That's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens is you found it yourself. I promise you, Victoria, when you find a case of fraud, you're going to be addicted. You're going to be spending late nights looking at the rolls. I'm going to go knock on that door next. Oh, that one's suspicious. I'm going to go check. It's like a treasure hunt. You start looking for fraud, and it's very motivating. So that's the second thing that happens. And then the third thing that happens is we work as a team. We put that nice big pile together, and then we plan a war strategy with that. In Shasta County, we went public. We didn't go public with the 350. We went public with 50. And I remember when we presented them before the council, they asked me, this is fun, let me just explain this. This is a funny story. So we had one commissioner flipped at the beginning. So we met with him privately, and I gave him a whole page of questions. That way, when I got up to give my 3 minutes of testimony, he asked me 20 minutes of questions. See, there's strategy here, right? We're playing a war. It was a great, so I got to give a 25-minute talk. It was all on the record. It was beautiful, and I showed all kinds of fraud. Anyway, so we showed 50 cases, and one of the commissioners, he said, well, Dr. Frank, you've only shown us 50 cases of fraud, and that's not enough to overturn any of our races. And so I just said, okay, then you and 49 other county officials have to give up your ballots in the next election, because that's what you're asking us to do. Turn it back on them. Every ballot is precious. Every vote is precious. People died for us to have every one of those. It's not okay. And then I said, and by the way, we got another 300 we're preparing right now. We're going to bring you more every month. And it didn't take a second month. They were already panicked because once they see we have the real evidence, you see where this is going? You need evidence, but the evidence isn't enough by itself. You have to have the movement. You have to have the people packing the commissioner room, scaring the bejeebers out of them. You have to have a movement. So that's why canvassing is important. You're actually building a grassroots movement. You're educating the public while you're knocking on the doors. That's how we won Shasta. So, and that's not the only one. We have about 35 counties now around the country. Every state's a little different, has different laws, different situations. I just came from Wisconsin a week there. They have an interesting law. Every city gets to decide for itself how it wants to run its elections. Every city. State law has that. And so, and in other words, in every county, they have 72 counties. They got like 10 cities in every county or something. So it's like I got 1,000 opportunities. And we got a dozen cities to flip already. They're all going back to paper. It's so much cheaper. That was another thing. I can go on, but I don't want to spend too much time on the Shasta situation. But we researched it, and it was costing them $250,000 a year to run their elections. And they saved that money. It's not out of their budget anymore. How much do your elections cost, you know? Why not? Why don't you know? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Why aren't you doing your due diligence? You're supposed to be running your elections. Yes?
Our special election recall just cost us $30,000.
For one issue.
One issue.
And it's a city issue, right?
Yes.
Wasn't even a whole county. A single, so imagine how much you spend for the whole year. That's crazy. Why are you spending that much money? Don't do it. As Bob Newhart says, stop it. Stop it. Okay, good. Anyway, that's a joke. All right. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story because this story will save me 20 slides later. Last year, I was asked by the Louisiana GOP to be a keynote speaker at their state convention. I was delighted to do that. It was in June. And it wasn't just me. because it was a big deal. It was right after 2,000 Mules came out. And so everybody was interested. They made the theme of the GOP election integrity. And usually they have 500 people show up for the statewide GOP. They had 10,000 people show up. And they had to hold it in the Cajun Dome. So this was a great, huge audience. It was awesome. The first speaker was Kyle Ardoin. He's the Secretary of State of Louisiana. And he got up and for 20 minutes, he says, maybe 30 minutes, I'm the president of the National Secretaries of States Association, and I can tell you that we have the best, most secure elections in the country. We're the gold standard in election security in the country, and 30 minutes of rah rah rah, we're the best. And at the end, there's a standing ovation and thunderous applause, and you know how it is in a stadium when you have thunderous applause, woo woo, standing ovation, yes. So he sat down, and I was next. And so I got up, and for about an hour, I showed them all their data, and I showed them all the problems in their elections, and some of the problems in their elections, and how much fraud they had, and how much we'd already found in some of our teams, and what we'd already identified. And so it was a well-received talk, standing ovation, thunderous applause, So now you can imagine what Saturday was like at the LA GOP for all the breakout sessions, because everybody's like, well, Dr. Frank says we're a wreck, and Kyle Ardoin says we're the gold standard. What's right? By the end of the day, a group of citizens, about a dozen, had cornered him and got him to agree to meet with me in a private meeting on Sunday. They scheduled the whole day. And I just need to tell you, I have done this, what I'm about to describe to you, dozens of times. What I'm about to describe to you. So Sunday morning, they picked me up at the hotel. They dropped me off at this private residence. It's me, Kyle, and a hostess. And starting from about 9 o'clock or so, I start explaining how his elections work. And people are always surprised at that. They think, well, doesn't the Secretary of State know how our elections work? No. They don't have a clue. Most of your legislators don't have a clue either. I spend most of my time when I'm working at that level just teaching them how their elections work. They don't even know. So for about 3 hours, I explain to him everything. I show how the fraud's getting in and blah, blah, blah. So we're taking a break for lunch. We're walking to the dining room table. And he says to me, Dr. Frank, he says, I understand all this stuff you're teaching me, but I'm a little confused. What's that? In order for the fraud to happen, you'd have to have access to our elections. Yeah, exactly. And he says, that can't happen. And why do you say that? And he says, because we're the gold standard in network security in the country. He says, we have the latest and greatest, most secure election networks in the country. He says, I even have on my cell phone an app that tells me in real time if there's any unusual activity on any of our election networks. I'm so glad you're laughing, because that shows you what I'm up against. So I said, well, speaking of cell phones, so I took my cell phone out, I sat it down in between us on the table, and I called my friend. Yeah, I'm sitting here with Kyle Ardoin, the Secretary of State of Louisiana. Tell me about Louisiana. Those are code words. Click, 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 click. Within 30 seconds, we told him his own username and password from his computer at work at the Capitol. Okay? We downloaded all the usernames and passwords for all the election systems throughout the state of Louisiana. They don't have counties, they have parishes. And then for the next 25 minutes, we went into each parish, turning on the machines, because if they're plugged in, the motherboards are hot. Technical people know this. There's an iDRAC 8 chip on the motherboards. You have the same ones here. You can turn the machines on remotely. We could change any ballot. We could change any tally, anything we wanted. We did this for 25 minutes, parish after parish after parish. And the whole time I'm ribbing him. I'm looking at him. How's that cell phone? Anything on your cell phone? Silence. I loved it. So anyway, he finally he says, I give up, I get it. Exactly. So what are we going to do about it, Dr. Frank? So then after lunch, we spent the next 3 hours reviewing state law. What authority does he have? What powers does he have? And we came up, long story short, he's going to decertify all the machines in the state of Louisiana for the 2022 election. That's what we decided. That's the plan. So I call Mike Lindell. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon now, maybe 4:30. Hey, Mike, I'm sitting here with Kyle Ardoin, President of the Secretary of State of Louisiana. He's going to decertify all the machines in the state of Louisiana. He's going to make a public announcement that they're all hacked and the election's not secure. Mike's like, way to go! He says, looking good. I knew you would. He always says that. Mike always says that. The next week, 3 days later, 4 days later, something like that, Mike flew out to Louisiana because they were having a big discussion in the state about their voting systems, and they were talking about upgrading and changing and whatnot. And so Mike testified, and he said, look, if you guys will go back to paper, we'll bring you all national resources in, we'll do all the training for you, we'll help you get converted back, no charge, we'll make it easy for you to do, but you ought to make that decision. Mike, that's Mike doing that. Well, 2 weeks later, we didn't tell everybody what was going to happen because we were making him into a hero. We were making Kyle Ardoin into a national hero. We wanted him to come out. 2 weeks later, when he was supposed to make the announcement, he didn't. And we were all like waiting for that. And we were surprised. And so the grassroots 12 people or so were like, what's going on? And he wouldn't answer our calls. Somebody obviously got to this guy, right? Okay. So anyway, we worked and worked. We were not able to get the thing going again before the 2022 election. So it happened with the machines just like normal. And so after the election, those 12 people were very angry. And they cornered him at a public press conference, Kyle Ardoin, and they said, you met all day with Dr. Frank the day after the GOP, and he showed you how your machines are completely hacked, and you agreed that you were going to decertify them for the whole state, and you didn't do it. Why? And he denied ever even meeting with me. He denied the whole thing. So the citizens were mad again. So they started collecting affidavits. The first affidavit, I picked up Dr. Frank at this hotel, I delivered him to this address, and she was here, and he was here, and this is the part of the conversation I heard. Next, 2 affidavits. We're the people that brought eggplant parmesan. We delivered it to them at 11:30 for their lunch. We overheard this part of you see what I'm saying? They documented the entire day. They met with him privately, and they said, we're going to sue you, and we're going to expose you publicly because you lied and you reneged on the deal. Next day, he announced he's resigning. Last year he resigned. So why do I tell that story? Because it's so many things in this story that it just makes you understand what's going on so much. The first thing is they know. How do you know they know? Because I've done that exact kind of thing with dozens of secretaries of states and dozens of AGs right in front of their face. I was in the Capitol building in Missouri. We turned the lights off and on in the room with them sitting in the room, okay? From an outside white hat hacker. I mean, I'm telling you, we have done it. They know. That's the first point. The second point is they're not going to fix it. And there are a lot of reasons why they're not going to fix it. Some are controlled, some like it that way, okay? The point is they're not going to fix it. The third thing is I'm a catalyst. I cause a lot of trouble around the country. I like that. I'm a troublemaker. But notice nothing happened until when? The people stepped up and made it happen. So I'm here, I'm a catalyst, I'm starting a bonfire, I'm throwing gasoline on it, I'm giving you information, I'm helping you, but I can't fight your war. You have to fight your war. You're the citizens here. But I'm delighted to hop in the foxhole and fight with you, but it has to be you. Can't be me. I'm a catalyst. I'm just helping you. So that's why I love that story. So many things about this story are what's going on with us today. You know I'm the real deal. You know I'm a troublemaker. The FBI took my phone. They took my phone the day after they took Mike Lindell's phone. And the reason they did that is because I got Mike in trouble. Because if you've ever heard of Mesa County and Tina Peters, I'm the one that red-pilled her. I'm the one that showed her the fraud. I'm the one that helped her arrange to get her machines all backed up. So my phone was used for me to do that. So they took my phone as a material witness, and they took Mike's too because I used his resources to accomplish that. So I got him in trouble. Anyway, that's there. The reason why it's a federal case is because it exposes the federal network. The Albert sensors. Do you know about the Albert sensors? Yeah. Do you guys have them here? Do you know? I think they are here. Yeah, I think they are too. What it is it's a national network that the federal government started installing in 2002 to protect us from malware attacks. Okay, it monitors all the network traffic in the whole country. It's all a big network. It's been hacked for over a decade. High school level hackers can get into it. You're basically giving away all your data to everybody in the world. You just didn't know it. Most people don't even know it. That's why when we got all the backups from Mesa County, it exposes a lot of this, and that's why it's a federal case. It's ridiculous. It's a whole talk. We can get into all this, but it's why you don't want to have electronics. If you haven't seen this movie Selection Code, it's about Tina Peters and her situation. She's being prosecuted and persecuted by the state of Colorado big time. It's a 1-hour movie, Selection Code. It's a very powerful movie. Anybody see it? Yeah, what do you think? Is it a good movie? Yeah, very good. Very good movie. It's not a cheesy documentary. It's really well produced. It's a 1 hour long. It's a good thing for you to be a good event here, Holly. Yep. Show it right here and have an audience and have Tina Peters come in and talk. She was under state arrest for over a year. She's now free. She can come and talk and collect an offering for her, help her pay her legal expenses because she's hurting right now. But you can help her. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it. Okay. After it came out, and this is another aspect I want to convey to you, is that then the media comes out with their reply. The New Yorker, this is them. It's funny to see myself in cartoon. They got the bald head right and the bow tie, but I don't think my butt's that big. But they got this right. I'm going around the country teaching everybody about election fraud. And it's every time we do something, the media characterizes it, spins it in certain ways. And in this article, they spin as we're the conspirators and poor Tina Peters is the victim. No, she's the hero. She was afraid and she stood up. And it's been really a rough road to hoe. As I travel the country and I meet with clerks, they all know, every clerk in the country knows the name Tina Peters. And when I red pill clerks, they say, we don't want to be Tina Petered. They want to stay underneath the radar. She's a verb now. All right. So that's what I'm doing going around the country teaching people. In fact, do it so much that Sean Smith, he's retired from the Air Force, he called me the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity. I love that. That's flattering. It made me look up Johnny Appleseed. I hadn't looked him up since I was a kid. I found this movie with Johnny Appleseed on YouTube. And he's singing, the Lord is good to me, and so I thank the Lord, you know this one, for giving me the things I need, the sun and rain and an apple seed, yet he's been good to me. Remember this? You remember this?
We used it as a mealtime blessing
It's a great one.
at camp. Yeah, when I was at Girl Scout camp.
Yeah. That was Disney.
Long time ago.
50 years ago. That was our country. Okay? And when I saw that, it's like cold water in the face. Oh my gosh, that is like a perfect contrast. 50 years ago from today. We didn't just lose our elections, we've lost our ethics, we've lost our morality. We are confused as a culture. That's the way we were. We have to repent as a country, guys. The LA Times picked it up. They called me the Johnny Appleseed of election fraud, which is fine, that's what they want to say, because I've been making big progress in California. I've given now 60 talks there. I've been there in California 1 week every month of the year. And we're kicking butt in California. It's really big. They did a follow-up study. This is how you know I'm over target. They're panicking, okay? The state legislature is passing emergency resolutions to stop other counties from following Shasta County. That's why I want you to be Shasta County. I want you to be that county. You guys have everything you need. So let's make it happen, okay? All right, yeah, I'm a scientist. I'm a terrorist. Mr. Lindell discovered the work I was doing in those states, and then he made a movie about me called Scientific Proof. It's a 1 hour long movie, and it's got lots of stats in it. Somebody was asking me about stats. It's about half Mike explaining what I'm doing and half me explaining what I'm doing. It's kind of complicated, and I got, after 3.5 hours with Mike Lindell, it's a long time to talk to Mike Lindell. Yeah, I'm glad you laughed. I love the guy. He's good. I've spent weeks and weeks of time with him, so I can make fun. But I was just getting tired, and I was showing him some graphs, and I said, Mike, I said that ain't natural, buddy. And that's the approach I'm going to take tonight. I'm not going to go too deep into the math, because if I do, you'll just get tired. I'm just going to say, look at that. That ain't natural, is it? Okay. And if you want to discuss it more, we can discuss it more. But I'm going to go easy on the stats. I was also in this movie with Mike as well. Mike did the Cyber Symposium, remember, 3 years ago? That was when he showed the country, the world, that he had 100 terabytes of recordings of our elections being hacked during the election, okay, in over 3,000 counties, including every county in Oregon, okay? So he has, you could see the network traffic, and he has recordings of the network traffic. Okay, then a year later, he did the Moment of Truth Summit. I was participating the second day of that with the Trial of the Machines. And then this year, he just came out with the Election Crime Bureau Summit. And he's got another strategy he wants us all to implement around the country. Basically, he wants us to police our polling places. And they've come up with an electronic device they have that'll help you to monitor your polling place. But anyway, that's a longer discussion, but we can get into that if you want. So I've been involved through the whole time. If you want to see any of that stuff, LindellTV.com or FrankSpeech.com. Everybody always asks, is that name for you, Dr. Frank? No. Mr. Lindell came up with the name before he even met me. It means bold, truthful speech. But I was at the launch, so everybody thinks. He pays for everything, by the way, so please buy his pillows. This is my commercial for Mike. Please buy his pillows. He announced this year at the summit, which surprised me, that he's spent all of his personal wealth already. And he's borrowing money now to do this fight. And I knew he was doing that. He inspired me. When I first met him in March of 2021, he told me, I'm going to spend all my money because I either spend it or they're going to take it away. And that inspired me, so that's why I don't charge for any of my events. I've never charged since, and I just ask people to chip in to pay for my plane tickets. And if he can spend all his personal wealth, I can spend mine. I can't spend my wife's earnings. That's not okay. And people say, how do you afford this, Dr. Frank? Well, we don't have a mortgage, and my wife works. And if everybody chips in and pays for my plane tickets, I can keep doing this. And I have been. And God's blessing. I'm able to succeed. So it's going. All right. This is how you know Mike's the real deal, by the way. You just have to leave that one up a little bit. Since I was involved at the beginning, especially our President Trump asked me to be his keynote speaker at his Wellington rally. That was the first rally that he did after leaving office. And I worked so hard on that presentation because I knew the whole world would be watching it. And I remember that day walking out and looking at a sea of 21,000 people that had been standing there for 6 hours in 80-degree weather, drinking beer and listening to rock and roll at a Trump rally, and thinking to myself, I just wasted a week of my life because I'm going to try to teach this crowd math. But as I was going, about 10 minutes into the presentation, it was the most awesome class ever, probably the best math class of my life. I could just feel the crowd, ooh, ah, ooh. It was awesome. It was the best math class of my life. Next day, they made memes about me. I love it. People make T-shirts. Make math great again. I like that idea. But I bring up the story for this reason as well, and that is that I was supposed to be on Tucker on Thursday night before Saturday night because it's the preview before the big first rally of Trump, and I'm out, and I'm the keynote. I'm telling everybody how our election got stolen, and at the last minute it was canceled, and I didn't understand that at the time, but Tucker explained to me later that the reason it was canceled is because at Fox News, nobody's allowed to talk about that. There's a whole list of 15 things they're not allowed to talk about. And I remember one of the things was Soros. They're not allowed to talk about Soros. They're not allowed to talk about vaccine risk. They're not allowed to talk about Big Pharma. There's a whole bunch of things they're not allowed to talk about. And a few days later, Sean Hannity, I was on the phone with him. He said the same thing. So I tell people, stop listening to Fox. Dan Bongino left Fox, right? They had to chase this guy out. He's not our friend either, by the way. He's building a conservative brand to a conservative audience, but he's very moderate. But you don't know that because you only see what he presents. So my point to you is, where are you getting your news? Okay, and you're probably not getting the real news. So stop it. If you're getting your media from about Mike, talking about the $5 million challenge, that's all wrong. I've been intimately involved in all of that stuff, and everything you read in the media it's not right. It's incorrect. They got this part right. They call me a crackpot math teacher from Ohio. They got that part right. I am that. I've been when I met with Mac Warner, the Secretary of State of West Virginia, He was on a radio interview that night, and he had told the whole world, yep, there's election fraud in West Virginia, and elections are stolen. So I'm still having success at the top, converting people that are senior leaders, but nothing happens when you do that. The people, it has to be bottom up. That's where we're being successful. CNN doesn't agree. 2020 election wasn't stolen. Douglas Frank and his bogus equation claiming otherwise are still winning over audiences. Yes, I'm winning them over everywhere. I did a calculation the other day. I have met in person with 100,000 people now around the country in the last 3 years of work. And that means every time I'm with 3,000 people, one of them I've met before. It's pretty cool. When I go through the airports now, it seems like every time now somebody goes, "Oh, it's Dr. Frank." So I know I'm making progress, right? People are getting the word out. Okay, so I don't want you to think I'm trying to cover all the bases, right? I've told you you can't trust the media anymore. I don't want you to trust any of the machine companies. I did a study for the whole state of California, 20 years of elections right down to the address level. All the election machines are bad. There isn't one good and one not good. The problem isn't the machines. The problem is that they're all connected. That's the problem. It's a network. So none of them are good, so don't go that way. I'll show you something about your machines while I'm on that. Normally I skip these slides because I tell you the story about Kyle Ardwant, but I need to show you this because we're in Oregon. Okay, let's see. Here you go. Y'all see this lawsuit last year? So it was up in Washington County, Oregon. I was asked to testify in this lawsuit. What happened was a local citizen was doing exactly what I'm asking you to do. He got a copy of the voter rolls and went to the county clerk, Rhiannon, and said, "Please give me a copy of the voter rolls." And she said, "No." So he went to the DA for that county, and the DA reviewed the law and instructed the clerk, "You have to give him a copy of the rolls. It's state law. You have to do that." Well, she didn't know what she's doing, like most of the clerks in our country, and she accidentally gave him a complete backup of her voting systems. Okay, a complete backup. I mean, he has all the ballot images. He has everything, okay? All right. She doesn't know what she's doing, right? She just gave a complete backup. Well, when your former Secretary of State found out about it, she panicked. And she had the AG issue a restraining order that says in it, quote, "Even when systems are not directly connected to networks, they are vulnerable to attack through physical or wireless access." This is your AG and your Secretary of State of your state admitting in public that your machines are hackable wirelessly, which is why if he has a backup copy of your election system, it can't go public. Because if it goes public, everybody will be able to hack into your elections. We already can. But you see the point I'm making? This is your own Secretary of State admitting this. Okay? This is particularly rich. Further, such a disclosure creates risk to elections infrastructure to any jurisdiction nationally using the system. Why? Because they're all networked into this national network. And once you have all the usernames and passwords, because you have all the backups, you're connected into the whole national network. I had to cover that. I just like this newspaper article I read. I was doing some research last year about Oregon. Oregon's famously easy to use, easy to cheat voting system could get even less restrictive. In other words, it's less secure. We should never be sacrificing integrity for convenience. Integrity is the most important thing. Every vote matters. If it took us a week to count them, that's better than what you have now. If you had to stand in line all day, that's better than what you have now. And you don't have to. You just have to design your systems accordingly. I think I've shown you enough. Okay, you normally skip those slides, but we're in Oregon, so I had to show you that. All right, let's dive into your data here. The first thing that'll happen, you go to Rhiannon and you say, "Rhiannon, will you give me a list of everybody who voted in the election, please?" And let's say she gives you a list and it has 1,000 names in it. Then you go to the Secretary of State website and look it up. How many people voted in your local election? The numbers won't match. It doesn't match anywhere in the country. I've done 3,000 counties like this. None of them reconcile. And when you bring it to her attention, you'll say, why is this happening? I don't understand. I asked you for a list, and you gave me a list, but it doesn't match the Secretary of State. I promise you this is what she's going to say. Oh, that's normal. I'm not kidding. I heard it's, you know why I know what she's going to say? Because they all go to the same conventions. They're all told the same, they're all hypnotized. They all say the exact same phrases. She says, that's normal. What do you mean it's normal? It's a dynamic system. What do you mean it's a dynamic system? Well, we're always adding and removing people from the voter rolls, and so it never reconciles. Think about that for a minute. Your clerk can never reconcile your own election. Can you imagine going into the bank and saying, hey, you know, my bank book says I have $110, but you say I have $105. And your banker says, oh, that's normal. No, you want it to reconcile to the penny. You want your elections to reconcile to the vote. And if they don't, why not? She is unable to do that. If she wanted, she couldn't, because she's not in control of your election. She's basically putting the machines out there and running the software programs which are connected to the state, and everything is out of her control. She's not even in control of your elections. You have to be in control of your elections, and until you are, your elections are not going to have integrity. That's the situation we're in. Yeah, brother?
Yeah, just to be clear, the machines that we would be using here are the scanners and tabulators, but because we don't have any voting machines.
I'm going to help you with that. Let me come back to that. For example, in the 2020 election, the Secretary of State says this is how many people voted in your state, but this is what your voter history says. In other words, in the state, you don't know who 7,000 of your voters are in the state. Is 7,000 votes enough to change any statewide issues? Yeah. Okay, well then that's important. You can't reconcile to that number. What about your own county? In 2020, in Josephine, you had 52,534, according to the Secretary of State's website. But if you ask for a list, the voter rolls, this is how many. In other words, you don't know who 183 of your voters are. It doesn't reconcile. Why doesn't it reconcile? Because you're not in control of it. Is that enough to change any elections in your town? Yeah. Sure. Oh, well, there you go. So you're out of control. And I just use this as an example. These are right out of your Secretary of State website numbers, so it doesn't reconcile. I'm just going to keep moving here. I'm going to come back to your question. Let me deal with it now. I'm about to show you a whole bunch of manipulation, and then after I show you that manipulation, I say, but wait, how is all this manipulation possible, Dr. Frank? And I'm about to show you the manipulation. I'm just skipping that for a minute to answer your question now. The answer is, it's machines, stupid, right? But what are the machines? And this is what you were saying. What you wanted me to clarify. What do I mean by machines? People think that the machines are just what you put your ballot through or what you vote on. No, there's all kinds of systems and electronic systems that are working together. How do you register people to vote? How do you maintain the rolls? How do you clean the rolls? How do you print ballots? Who prints the ballots? Who mails them out? How do you know where the mailing addresses are? Blah, 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 blah. There's a whole set of systems, and we could spend the whole night talking about that. It's a waste of time. We need to just get rid of all of this. It's complicated. What we need to do is we need to vote Amish. Okay? All paper, no machines. Okay? It's the way we... And this is my daughter, Nellie. I told you she has Down syndrome. She's 25. She can vote Amish, okay? And she does a great job voting Amish. And one of the first things Rhiannon is going to say is, oh, no, federal law requires us to have machines for handicapped people. That's what they all say. The clerks always say this. That is not true. Federal law says if you have machines, then you have to have machines that are handicapped accessible. It doesn't say you have to have machines. But it says, and by the way, federal law says, and if you'll use these machines, we'll give you this money. See how it works? That's why HAVA happened in 2002, and that's why all the counties all started saying, oh, sure, we'd love to have them. The federal government's paying for it for us.
One of the challenges in Oregon right now is the Secretary of State.
The new one.
Well, not the old one. The director gave a directive from 2022 that says that all counties with more than 500 voters have to use machines.
Have to.
Yes, have to.
Right.
And the only way that you can get around that is have to change that directive.
No, you have another way around that. So let's say that she says, let's say that your new Secretary of State says there's a new directive that you may not arm yourself and you may not lock the front door of your house. What would you say? That's not constitutional. You can't do that. And if you can prove that your voting machines are allowing other people to disenfranchise you from your constitutional right to a vote, then you don't have to follow that directive. It's unconstitutional. And I'm expecting you in Josephine County to say that and to act that way. Okay? This is why I need to meet your sheriff. Your sheriffs have constitutional authority right at the border of your county. And if he's not going to back you up, then boot him out and put in a new sheriff. Okay? Because he's the one who can interpose between you and the state government. He can keep the federal government out. He's the person you elect to protect you from, good catch, to protect you from the tyranny of government, your sheriff. So that's another reason. What gave me the idea of voting Amish wasn't Nellie, even though she's awesome. I'll just tell you quickly. She's so cute. So I was sitting there the night before the election. I'd never voted with her before. She's retarded. She doesn't really understand a lot of this stuff. And so I was sitting there with my sample ballot the night before filling it up. She came up behind me in the chair and she snuggles me and she's like, give me a hug. And then she sees the ballot and she goes, oh, she says, I love Joe. I love Mark. She knows these people on the ballot because we've been going to events together. And so I thought, that's a great reason to vote. Okay, so I took her in with me and we went into the polling place and it was not a secret ballot. She went into the voting booth and the whole place could hear her. Oh, I love Joe. Oh, I love my. So it was not a secret ballot. It was a beautiful day. But what gave me the idea for voting Amish was that in Ohio in 2020, 60,000 Amish people came out and voted for the first time ever. And the reason they did that is because the governor in our state, a rhino, DeWine, was imposing COVID restrictions on them. And so that got them to say, we're going to step up and vote. And they all turned out on one day, and they all voted on paper. That's voting Amish. Turning out in one day and voting on paper. That's what I want you to do. I want you to vote Amish, okay? All in one day. And show your photo ID while you're at it. And that's what they do in Europe, by the way. Everybody turns up on one day. They show a photo ID. They have paper poll books, paper ballots. Everything's transparent. They count them that night. The numbers are out that night. Everybody knows the result that very night. All of Europe does it in a single day. What's wrong with us? Okay? We can do it. And if they say, oh, it's not practical, we can't do it. Yes, you can. You just have to divide it up by precinct and have some way of counting. And what's the commissioner candidate name that met me beforehand? The guy from Chris Barnett met me beforehand. And he said, you know why we need to get rid of the machines? And I said, why? And he says, because we need to restore faith in our elections. At least half of the people in our culture will never trust our elections again. Okay, so this is my solution. This is my favorite solution. I've seen a lot of solutions. This is my favorite one. We spent $47 at the hardware store. We built this. We call it the Cajun clothesline. This could be Rihanna loading the ballots because it has to be an official person touching the ballots and another deputy on the other side unloading the ballots. Okay, and then these are citizens tallying the ballots. Okay, counting, and each citizen on this side was tallying 3 of the races. Each citizen on the back was tallying 2 of the races. So everything was double checked or triple checked. They run 100 ballots by. They compare tally sheets. If they agree, they put the tally sheets, a rubber band, next 100. If they don't agree, run the 100 again. They did a whole precinct, just about 1,000 people in about 2.5 hours. And it's all being streamed. And that's my favorite part about this, is it's all online. But think about it. This would restore faith in the counting process, yes? Okay, so at least your people would trust the counting process. But now I'm going to change directions, because that isn't where the real problem is. That isn't the real problem. The real problem is on how do you get the ballots in to the election. That's where the real problem is. But it's important that we deal with that. So let me show you one story, and then I need to teach it. I'm doing good on time, yeah? Yep. Yeah, good. Let's see here. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself. I'm enjoying myself. I was made for this. So I got to speak to Speaker Voss, Speaker of the House of Wisconsin, and I'm going to show you their data, and I'm going to show you an example from Wyoming, and then I'm going to show you yours, because I'm teaching you so that you'll recognize your own data. And a citizen set it up, and it was me, Sean Smith. He's the guy who called me the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity. He's retired from the Air Force. He retired in 2019. He was working in the Pentagon, cybersecurity for Space Force. He's excellent. So, and then John Eastman, and that's why I don't have tomorrow. I do have tomorrow available. I was supposed to be in California tomorrow testifying for this guy. He was Trump's constitutional scholar, John Eastman. But my testimony got moved, so that's why I have tomorrow free. So I'm going to be here working with you guys tomorrow. But anyway, it was the three of us meeting with Speaker Voss. Sean's job was to show him how to hack into the elections. My job was to review all the fraud we'd already found in Wisconsin. And then John's job was to say, okay, now that you know that there's fraud and your machines are not secure, here's the authority you have according to the Constitution, and here's what you should be doing. And so that was the strategy. It was about an hour and a half long meeting. It was a secret meeting. I was about through half of my presentation, and he interrupted me. Dr. Frank, he says, I just don't believe we have that much fraud. I was describing about 350,000 cases of fraud in Wisconsin. He said, I just don't believe we have that much. And I could go into those examples, but let's save the time. I said, how can you possibly think that we have, think that way after everything I've shown you? And here's his answer, and it's really important you hear this answer. He says, because we've done recounts in our 3 largest counties, and they all came out right. We've done recounts in our 3 largest counties, and they all came out right. And so I told him, sir, it doesn't matter how many times you count the cash in the cash register. What matters is how many of the bills are counterfeit. Counting is only part of the problem. What you need to know is all the ballots are really from who you think they're from. And in Oregon especially, you have a horrible situation. You've lost control and ballot in custody, chain of custody on all of your ballots. How do you even know you're really counting the real ballots? You don't know. You're out of control of so many aspects of your election. There's no way to have an election in your state that has election integrity. It's too easy to cheat. So anyway, I explained that to him, and it was like it clicked. That it's not just the machines. The machines are important. The machines report who's voted. The machines report what the tallies are so that bad guys know who to vote for and how many to vote. In other words, it provides the intelligence for the cheaters. Anyway, he came out of that supposedly secret meeting, and somebody leaked it out that we were there, and he was accosted by 10 television stations. They pinned him against the wall and peppered him with questions. It was awesome. And he admitted to the whole world that there's widespread fraud in the state of Wisconsin more than the margins. Did you hear that? Because you're listening to the wrong news. You need to be listening to Mike Lindell 5 nights a week, 6 o'clock Central Time. Just listen to the first 10 minutes. A whole hour of Mike is a lot. Okay? Okay? But I love him, so I can kid. But you know what? Remember when Rush Limbaugh was on the... You didn't have to listen to 3 hours. You just catch 10 minutes. He had a shtick. It was fun. You just had to catch 10 minutes. You know what's going on. Same way with Mike. Listen 5 nights a week on the Lindell TV. Because we were on that night telling everybody. And I'm telling you, everything that happens good, I tell Mike right away. We're friends. And he reports it on. So he's like a magnet for all the good stuff happening in the country. You want to know what's happening, you got to listen to that program. All right. So see, each one of these stories does something. They're not willy-nilly. These are some of the data I showed Speaker Voss. These are the voter rolls for the 3 largest counties where he had done those recounts, starting from November of 2009 to when I prepared this, which was December of 2021. And what I showed him is I said, notice, sir, that right before the 2012 election, your voter rolls suddenly surged. And then after everybody voted, you took a bunch of them out. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Do you remember my Pennsylvania story? And then right before 2014, your rolls filled up and you took them out. And then right before 2016, you filled your rolls right back up again full. And then after the election, you removed 25% of your voters. 1 in 4 of the voters in those counties you're removing after the election. And then they're all back again, ready to use again by December of 2020. I said, how do you explain this? By the way, this was 3 days of work for me to gather all these data. It is a lot of work. Nobody had ever seen these graphs before. I testified before their legislature, and it sent shockwaves across the state because his answer was, oh, Dr. Frank, those 3 counties have a lot of turnover. And so I said, well, okay, then what about all of your counties? Every county. Because what was happening is they were saying, oh no, Dr. Frank, we can't have widespread fraud in Wisconsin because every county runs their own election. Oh, really? No, that ain't natural, buddy. That ain't natural. That ain't natural. Every county, and just, I want you to realize, it's not just them. In Wyoming, and they had never seen it before, I just showed this to them in January. These are their 3 largest counties in Wyoming. What you need to know about Wyoming is they have 8 out of 9 people are registered Republicans. And they're the most conservative in the country. They voted 3-1 for Trump, more than anybody else. Here's their 3 largest counties, and I showed it to them, and here's all their counties. And guess what? All of their counties, on average, are varying 20% every 2 years to 25% every 2 years. Okay? They had no idea this was happening to them. The clerks don't even know this is happening to them. You know why? Because they don't know how to do this. All they do is their software program tells them the total every month and stuff like this. They don't know this is happening to them. So, speaking of which, before I leave Wyoming, I want to make one more point, and then I'll go to your data. See, I'm teaching you about what I'm about to show you.
But you can see that that's centrally controlled. When you see that, it's centrally controlled. It has to be.
Remember I said at the beginning, in every state in the country the elections are centrally controlled? I can do that for every state. Yes. Okay. And what I just did is I showed you Wisconsin first, because that way I get to give a commercial for Mike in the Lindell report. And then I showed you the most conservative in the country is self-control. And now I'm about to talk about that for a minute more, and then I'm going to show you, because I'm teaching you a lot of things all at once, I realize. But it's easier to learn in stories. You know, Jesus taught us that with parables, right? Okay. So this is their legislative session this year. They only have a 40-day legislative session in Wyoming. And what happened is they have 26 Republicans there who vote like their most conservative Republican in the state. And in their legislature, they have 26 Republicans who vote like their 6 most liberal Democrats from the 6 big cities. In other words, every vote in their legislature is 26 against 26 plus 6. You understand what I'm saying? The most conservative state in the country already has lost its legislature. We don't have one good legislature in this country left. I can tell you story after story after story. So you're in Oregon. You're used to thinking how bad your legislature is. But they're all bad. I'm telling you, they're all bad. There isn't one good one left, okay? We're working on it. And I give you a little bit of hope here. Give you a little bit of hope because in the 2022 session, they only had 9 red dots here. And they went from 9 to 26. Anybody know how they did that? They had a movement. They had a movement. And you remember they got rid of Liz Cheney last year. They flew in Trump. They event after event after event, and they got rid of Liz Cheney. They had a massive public awareness, and they got rid of Liz Cheney. And at the same time they got rid of Liz Cheney, they voted in a new Secretary of State. His name is Chuck Gray. He's my favorite Secretary of State in the country. Despite the fact that he's up against this legislature, he's already been starting to affect some election reforms in that state. I'm excited about it. The Republicans, they formed a Freedom Caucus, they call it. They're working really hard to get 6 more of these back over here, and then they'll be in the majority. So that's happening. Let me finish, and then you go. What's interesting about the story is when they got rid of Liz Cheney and replaced her, they also voted in Chuck Gray on an election integrity platform. The first bill that this legislature put forward to try to do was to remove election authority from the Secretary of State and put it and create an election commission, quote, like they have in Wisconsin, unquote. In other words, the legislature doesn't want him to have authority to fix the election. So as soon as he got elected, they're trying to take it away. Yeah, Victoria.
The centrally controlled elections are how all those purple Republicans got elected, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So I think I've now queued you up. Are you ready for your data?
Yep.
I've taught you a lot of things. I've explained a lot of ideas. Now I'm going to use your own data. Let's see here. There's a lot. Oh, I left out one point. Each of these points is important. Otherwise you don't understand. So when you look at your voter rolls, you're going to find that they're full of people who are not real voters. They're full of dead people. They're full of people that have moved away, people that are misspelled words, at misspelled addresses. They're not real. There's just, the rolls are filthy, okay? I would say it's about 30% of the people in your rolls don't belong there, okay, in your voter rolls. About 30%. Okay, but you're not alone. You have, as a state, about 105% of your voting age people in your rolls. 105% of your voting age people are in your rolls and considered active voters. That's impossible, yes? Okay, well, here's Kentucky. They have 105% of their voting age people in the rolls too. So this is a big point. You are a blue state. Kentucky's a red state. You both have 105% of your people in your rolls. It's not about Republican and Democrat. It's about who's ever in power, staying in power, and controlling the system to stay in power. So this is a nonpartisan meeting tonight, even though, Holly's sitting right there. Okay, it's a nonpartisan. I am not, in fact, if anything, I'm more critical of the Republicans than I am of the Democrats. Because a Democrat will tell you, I'm a socialist, vote for me. And a Republican will say, I'm a conservative, vote for me, and then act like a socialist when they get in office. Yeah.
Well, but also, if I'm following you correctly and everything I've heard you say over the last couple of years, they could use any vote. If they have a spare registration, they don't care if it's NAV or whoever, they can use that to buffer and fill in later. They don't care if they fill in.
So today, Holly, or maybe it was Victoria, somebody was reading me the statistics from the recent recall. And so many Republicans voted, so many Democrats voted, and they were reading these numbers. That's the wrong way to think. You don't know who actually voted. An evil person can use a Democratic vote. An evil person can use a Republican vote. You don't know who's voting using those ballots. It doesn't. That's why I'm changing the way you're thinking. I want to change the way you're thinking. So anyway, just to show you, this is Kentucky, and you notice that their voter rolls were growing faster than their 18 and older population. 18 and older is not eligible to vote. It's just old enough to vote. Eligible to vote somewhere in here, okay? I'm just showing you a non-arguable number, because if you decide who's eligible, then you argue. But it's down here somewhere. Judicial Watch recognized that and sued them in 2019. And they won the lawsuit, and they were required to remove several 100,000 people from the voter rolls. And then, by the way, I forgot to mention, right before the 2020 election, there was a nice little extra surge, which made them have 105% of the people in the voter rolls, more than their population of voting age people. Okay, really, this number is here. It's even more than that. You understand where I'm going? Judicial Watch sued them, and then the ACLU countersued them 6 months later, and they put them all right back in again. So I love Judicial Watch. I love that they're going around doing this. There are 350 counties in the country, including some here, that have more people in them than they've got people. And they're suing and winning everywhere they go. So one of the first things that people do when they see the voter rolls, and this is going to happen to you, Holly, so you'll be ready. Victoria, I know you guys, I was talking to you over there at the Heidi. What'll happen is people are going to say, we got to clean the voter rolls. We got to clean the voter rolls. It's a waste of time to clean the voter rolls. The problem isn't that the voter rolls are dirty. The problem is that you're not in control of the voter rolls. You have to get control of the voter rolls first, then clean them. And here's the second. Oh, by the way, this is for Kentucky. It's not just one county. 72 of their 120 counties have more people in them than the people. In LA County, Judicial Watch sued them in February. They had to remove 1.2 million people from their voter rolls. It was proven in court. This is this February. Out of like 5.3 million. About 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of their voters they had to remove. Within 2 months, and different than Kentucky, Their rolls were completely full again, but they weren't real. It was new people, new non-real voters. So in Kentucky, they just put them back in. No, in LA, it was new people that they filled the rolls with that are not real voters. So it's a waste of time to clean your rolls, because as soon as you need them, just like in Wisconsin, or just like I told you in Pennsylvania, they'll just stuff people back in. They just reactivate voters. The cheaters have access to your rolls. Your problem is you got to get control of your rolls. How do you get control of your rolls? You take them offline and you put them on paper. That's called a paper poll book. I can't change your paper poll book from Ohio, but I can change your electronic poll book from Ohio. See the difference? Okay, so that's important that you understand that idea. And that's where this was going to come in. How is all this possible? But I already had. Okay, now I needed to teach you that idea. Now let's get to your data. Get to your I already showed you one reconciliation. Let's do the whole state first, then I'll do Josephine. And then I think we'll be done. We can ask questions. Okay, so what? This slide got messed up somehow. Yeah, got messed up. Sorry, your population is here. How did that happen? I was working on it today. So I know why it happened. Give me a second here. Yeah, here we go. This is Shift F5. That's what happens when you're working on stuff. Here's your voting age population for the whole, no, this is Josephine. I was trying to show the whole state. Hang on, where's the whole state? Dadgummit. It shows on here the whole state.
It's a computer, it's a sentient creature, and it's out to get you.
Yeah, and I don't know why it's not working, guys. Let's see what's up with this.
I told you, it's a lie.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to show it to you this way. I'm going to just share my screen. Here we go. I'm going to just duplicate my screen so you can see the graph. So sorry it's not animated, but it'll work. So can you see this blue curve? This is your 18 and older population for the state. This black curve, I don't know your month-to-month data in your state. Your state hides that. I only have that in maybe 10 states. But I do know for every election how many people voted, who were registered to vote, I mean to say. That's the black curve. And what do you notice about this? You notice that it kind of ebbs and flows, but look what's happened recently. Your voter rolls have surged right up to your population. And actually, when I haven't continued it, you actually had 105%. Now it went right past. And then the red curve is who's voted in every election. And one of the things I like pointing out is after 2000, the elections became more volatile. They used to go presidential midterm, presidential midterm, presidential midterm. But now look at them, they're all wacky. As soon as we added the electronic machines, they go wacky. They do that in every state. It's not just you guys. Okay, so let's see here now. Let's see, Shift F5. So I don't know what happened to that slide, why it got messed up, but you get the point. Oh!
They were animated.
Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, yes. All right, so you get the idea. Increasing volatility, they just got out of order somehow. What I wanted you to see is that you have got 300,000 more registered voters than the population trend. Okay? That's a lot more, 15, 20%. And yesterday I was showing the team how that happens. I don't have time tonight's presentation to show you how that happens, but basically they're adding people faster than they're cleaning them out. So there you go. And I just basically showing you that as a state, the statistics are unrealistic and you've had huge surges in turnouts. And it's interesting, that surge is about 10,000, it looks about 10,000, 10% I mean to say, in the state. Oh, we'll talk about that a little bit. Let's do Josephine now. I just want you to see the whole state before I zoomed in on you, because I don't want you to think you're different than the whole state, because you're the same as the whole state. So here's your voting age population, Josephine. Looks like you're kind of steadily growing, nice slow pace. Here's how many people are in your voting rolls. As of 2020, you have more people in your voter rolls than you have 18 and older people. That's not eligible voters, that's 18 and older people. This blue line is actually lower if you're talking about eligible voters. And it should be lower by about 5%. Typically, that's what it is. So you've got more people in your voter rolls than you have people. That's not a good situation. And in other words, the rolls are growing faster than the population. There are 8 states in the country where the voter rolls are beyond, whole states, where the voter rolls are beyond the blue curve, and 350 counties like that. But in every state in America, the voter rolls are growing faster than the population. It's not just you. You're just ahead of everybody. Now this is where we're starting to get fun. So I do have your month-to-month data starting in 2013, and I was able to download it. So you can see how many people in your voter rolls are month to month. Something interesting happened right there. In the first few months of 2016, your voter rolls surged by 10,000. Did your population grow by 10,000? Why did your voter rolls surge by 10,000? 2016. And then you notice it's just been steadily climbing ever since, even though your population is not doing that. These are your own data. Okay? I'm not making any of this up. Here's who voted in every one of your elections. You notice that it's natural, presidential midterm, that's normal. But after 2000, it became more volatile. You have a huge turnout in 2018, more turnout in 2018 than you had in any of these prior federal elections. That's very suspicious. When did that happen? After you inflated the voter rolls. Yes?
Dr. Frank, I lived in Grants Pass here in 2015. My husband and I moved to a rental, and within a year, or I'd say 2 years, we started getting multiple mail from multiple different people that did not live in that house.
They're still in the rolls.
I know.
Did ballots arrive for them?
I don't know.
You could have voted multiple times.
I've ballots, but I've been saving that mail since 2017, and I have about 6 or 7 names that never ever lived at that address. Then we moved to Rogue River, February of last year. Same thing happening. 4 more new people at the place we live in Rogue River.
So thank you for that. Think about what she just said. This is just one anecdotal story, but wait till you see the voter rolls I'm about to give you. It's pervasive throughout your whole county. Your residences are full of non-real voters. Remember how I talked about you're gonna knock on a door and you're gonna say, you know, here, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, there's 6 people registered to vote here, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith don't know who 4 of them are. I'm telling you, this is everywhere, and that you just gave me a perfect example. What I'm telling you is real, okay? But this is suspicious. That ain't natural, buddy. Okay? That ain't natural. Okay? So I want you to think about this for a minute. If your voter rolls had just kind of continued the trend they were on, and I just drew this in just to make the point, because it actually was dropping a little bit, but your population was going up, so I just kind of compromised. If your registration rolls had just kind of continued the trend they were on, what would have happened in 2020? You would have had 100% turnout. You can't do that. So they have to inflate the rolls to disguise the fact that your turnouts are being stuffed. Does this make sense? Okay.
Why is a lot of this mail coming in under progressive insurance?
Oh, yeah.
Class action checks?
Because they get paid. Because they get paid to do that. There's a huge amount of money flowing into your elections. Now, remember I told you I have all the month-to-month data for your whole state starting in 2014. So I've plotted that for every county in your state. Remember I told you about Wisconsin, so now you're understanding. There are 3 months or 4 months in there that I don't have any data. I don't know why it's not there. My guess is there was some kind of transition going on at the state level in the record keeping. I don't know why, but anyway, I just wanted you to see I have month-to-month data for every county in your state. It's hard to see the small counties when they're big counties. So what we're going to do is we're going to put them all on the same scale. This is how many people are registered to vote in every county. And what you'll notice is if I put them all on the same scale, a percentage scale, they used to behave randomly. Something dramatic happened in 2015, not just to you. And ever since then, it's climbing in every county. There's a little gap, just ignore that. But it looks like you have one exception here. I'll have to go look up and see which one that is. But you see what's happening is that the whole state, it's centrally controlled what's happening. It's not random. Notice what else. You guys don't add, take out, add, take out, add, take out. You just keep adding them. You're not alone. There are other states that are like this. Kentucky is like that. They don't add, take out like Wisconsin add, takes out. You just keep adding them. And you're cleaning at a slower rate than you're adding. So the rolls just keep getting more and more full of non-real voters. Okay. That's Josephine. Just wanted you to see how you fit into everybody else. I highlighted that one for you. Here's the number of people who voted in every election in every county. And you'll notice that, it's hard to see the small ones because of the big ones. So let me put them all on the same scale. This is voter registration, voter registration. Notice that every single county in your state started shooting up at the same time. The number of people registered. You're not alone. That suspicious surge we saw in yours is not just your county, it's every county in the state. Motor voter, right there. That's when you added motor voter. That's when you automatically register every person who gets a driver's license to vote. You automatically register everybody who's on social services, citizen or not. So you're just basically filling your rolls with a bunch of names that disguise the stuffing, if that makes sense.
They're not supposed to vote if they're not citizens.
Right, and they don't usually, because they're afraid to vote. In the Hispanic communities, they know if they vote, it's a felony, and they don't want to be deported. They don't want to attract any attention to themselves. You know what? Other people vote for them. And what we did in Los Angeles, we found a whole neighborhood that had been harvested like that. And when we showed the Mexicans in that community, they were all terrified that we were going to be deported and everything. And we found 370 ballots that had been from this one area that had been harvested. And when we showed those Mexican people, they were like, please, we did not do this. We did not do this. So we had them all sign affidavits swearing they didn't vote, and we certified them and everything. Somebody obviously harvested their network. There's another example of that at UCLA last year. Think about this. You're in the same situation. Everything's by mail. So in UCLA last year, the NGOs, the non-government organizations, were coming in and they were offering $200 a ballot to the students. So what the students did is they went back to their dorm room, and they ordered absentee ballots for all their roommates and dorm mates, okay? And all those absentee ballots show up at the dorm, and they take a huge box down to the NGO, all worth $200 a piece. It can pay for your college tuition, okay? It's the same idea. You order absentee ballots for all those Mexicans in the rolls. Somebody did that, obviously. They didn't all vote. There's no way. They're terrified to do that. And somebody harvested that and took it in. And that movie 2,000 Mules shows the mules. And that's a longer story I can go into. But that's what's happening. You can see they're all the same. This is voter turnout, sorry. This is the number of people who voted in every election since 1998 in each of the counties. If I put them all on the same scale, I love this graph. This is the way your random elections used to look like in the 90s. Once you started stuffing your rolls, now you notice that every county is starting to behave exactly the same. The same percentages every time. In other words, every county is adding and removing, or the same percentages of people are voting in presidential. That ain't natural, buddy. That is not a natural phenomenon. That shows that your elections are being stuffed in the various counties, and I can show you that in an interesting way. Here is York County from the 2020 election. I made this graph earlier this year for my first trip here. Let me show you what this is. This is age across the bottom, age. And this blue curve is the population for the 2020 election in your county. So it looks like you have a lot of retirement age people that live here. That's the most prominent. It looks like you got about 1,500 people maybe 1,400 people of retirement age right there, and then people are passing away. That's normal. The gray curve is the number of people totally in your rolls, including inactive. So obviously you got a bunch of people in there that are inactive, way more than the number of people you have. See that gray curve by age, how many people? You have more people in the rolls than you have people. The black curve is who is considered active in your county. You notice you got more active voters than you have people in several places. And just about every single person above 68 is considered active, except that it isn't really true. When you look up these active people, a lot of them aren't here anymore. There are a lot of people that are not in the rolls who should be. This actually goes past. It's actually in excess. The red curve is everybody who voted in the 2020 election in Josephine. And you notice everybody who's 75 or older essentially voted. That's really remarkable patriotism. I'm really amazed by you folks, how patriotic you are. Okay. No, what's happened is these votes are dirty and they're being stuffed. That's what's happening. Okay, I just did this today in the afternoon, so I hope there are no mistakes. This is hot new stuff I just did today. This is your population as of 2020. And I'm going to show age as of 2020, and I'm going to show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of your elections. You ready? Here's 2014. Oops, sorry. That's everybody in your rolls. You already saw that. You've got an 18 and older population of about 70,500 round numbers. All registrants, you got 83,000. So yes, there are more people in your rolls than you have people, but that includes inactives. If we show the actives, so that should look like that last graph. But here's where it gets fun. Here who's voted in 2014 in Josephine. 2014 was before the big surge. Before the big surge, this is how many people voted of every age in Josephine County. And I didn't start at 18 because I don't have the ages of those people, because this is as of 2020, their age. Okay, so that's 2014. Here's 2016 after the surge of voters. Here's 2018. When I was doing this today in the office, I noticed something interesting. Everybody who voted in 2016 voted in 2018, starting from age 65 and up. I bet you in 2016, your retirement homes and retirement communities were harvested. Yep. And I bet you the exact same people were harvested both in 2016 and in 2018. Bet you the same. Here's the 2020 election. Oh, that's 2022, sorry, 2022. And here's 2020, that's the 2020 election. So what you notice is there's a pattern, don't you? Yep. And there are things that stick out. Like suddenly you all became more patriotic. When did that happen? When you added 10,000 more people to the voter rolls who weren't real voters. How much did this increase? From 2014 to 2018, if you compare midterm to midterm, 29,000 to 38,000 by 9,000. You inflated the rolls by 10,000 and the voting suddenly went up by 9,000. I think that's suspicious. I think that's evidence. It's not proof, but it's evidence. You know what? We're going to look every one of those people up. We're going to knock on their doors. We're going to prove that there's ballot stuffing going on in your community and that there's fraudulent ballots happening in your county. That's what we're going to do. And then once you have that fraud in your hand, you're going to be able to say, we don't want to use this system anymore because this system, the state is messing with our elections. We're a conservative county. We're not like the rest of these blue counties in Oregon. We are distinguishing ourselves as a, and yet you're letting the state control your election. Get them buggers out. Get them out of your election, run your own election locally, control your own rolls locally, control your own ballots locally. Make sure that every ballot gets to the right person. You want everybody to vote. I'm not trying to discourage anybody. You just want them to be the real ballots that are counting. Take your elections back. That's what you need to do. I did this when I was thinking today how to explain this to you. I tried preparing this. I was reminding you what this looks like. So I zoomed it in, right? Reminding you that your rolls surged by 10,000, or actually it's closer to 9,000. Wow. Closer to 9,000, and that's exactly how much the midterms surged from midterm to midterm. So if I compare apples with apples. So I was trying to think of a way to show that to you. That should wake you up. That should tell you something's wrong with our elections, and they absolutely are. So let's call that. Let me give you a little hope, and then I'll take questions, or you can kick me out, or whatever you want to do, Holly. This is fun. This is my physics STEM. This is my physics background speaking. So I don't want you to be too depressed. I want you to be angry and activated. So this is a metaphor. This aluminum rod represents America. I got it at Home Depot, nothing special. And then this rosin I put on there represents the truth. And I've been going around the country spreading the truth. And the truth is resonating. People are waking up everywhere. I'm telling you, the country's coming alive. Counties all over the place. I've got about 35 counties so far that have gotten rid of everything. Some places it's a lot easier than others, right? So it's getting louder. And getting very loud. The problem with the truth is it's annoying. The truth is annoying. But the thing about it is that if you're not annoying, nothing's going to happen. Remember my story with Kyle Ardoin? The people annoyed him. You know, it's funny when the newspapers interviewed him and said, "Why are you quitting, sir?" He said, "Because my friends are lying about me." Okay? They were annoying. They were annoying to him. How did we get the county commissioners to quit in Shasta? We annoyed them, okay? It takes a movement. You have to build a movement. You have to be annoying. And if that's all it takes to win, that's a cheap price to pay, right? Okay. And, you know, and we have to win the First Amendment war so that we don't have to fight the Second Amendment war, okay? Let's win it now. Be noisy. Be annoying. And you notice I can make this pretty loud. I can make it unbearably loud in here for sure. And you need to make the truth unbearably loud as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Question pretty quick with Dr. Frank. Hang on just one second. But right now, I'd like to see the hands of people who would like to be a part of the solution in solving the problem. Okay, you'll see the lovely Jane in the back of the room there. We have a sign-up sheet for you to sign up. We'll be in touch with you and let you know what, and the lovely Oliva. What's that?
Oh, no, everybody has one.
Okay, so fill those out, that's important. And the second thing, before we go on to questions, is in the back, you're gonna see a couple things. You're gonna see a donation jar. You would never ask, but I'm gonna ask for it. We provide housing for it, and we provide some transportation costs, but this man dedicates every day of his life to trying to save this country. So give him a little hand if you can. There's a box of jewelry out here. 100% of the revenue we generate from the jewelry tonight will go to Dr. Frank.
Thank you.
Show him our appreciation.
Very nice.
So, I think that's it. Dr. Frank?
Yeah, I'm happy to take questions in their hands, which is a good sign. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Brian.
Hi, Brian.
I've heard, most people in this room know who she is, but she works for our legislature. I heard from her that we can never fix this voter problem because we voted many years ago for mail-in voting. And that can never be changed, similar to what Shasta just did. I also was down in Tehama County last week, and they're all trying to get what Shasta did in Tehama County.
I know, I'm helping them.
But Gavin Newsom is already trying right now to sign a bill to stop all counties from doing what Shasta did.
Think about that. Why would a state fight so hard to not let you run your own election? Why would they do that? Because they don't want to give up central control of the election. They want to control it, right?
This is true about the legislature in Oregon, about us never being able to go back to a voter a room like an elementary school when I grew up, and you signed you showed your ID and counted by midnight.
Right. There's no reason to not do that in this county, and it might require civil disobedience in your county. Okay, but my point is, if they passed a law saying you couldn't arm yourself or lock your front door, and they were stealing your money every night, you would say, we're going to defend our constitutional rights. This is a constitutional issue. They are stealing your ballots. You have a right, you have a constitutional right to defend yourself. Well, how are you going to do that? You can't do that without a movement. You need to prove you've got fraud, prove that they are stealing from you, and then show it to all your community, and then your community will say, we're not going to do this anymore. And if your commissioners don't flip, you make their lives miserable, you annoy them. If Rhiannon doesn't come along, you fire her butt because she works for you, okay? You see where I'm going? Now, the problem is that you can't fix broken elections with broken elections. That's the problem. So you're going to have to elect. How do you elect in when the elections are fixed, right? That's a tough thing. That's why you really have to build a movement. That's how they were able to get rid of Liz Cheney, because they built a big movement and just overwhelmed the fraud. You're going to need to do that, I think, here. And if I saw your mayoral recall election, you only had 27% of your active voters vote. That's pitiful. You guys are asleep in the hills. Wake up. Address the Goliath that's standing in front of you. See what the real problem is? But you know, I can see why people would be disenfranchised. They're like, why do I participate if the whole thing's rigged anyway, right? But that's why we have to build a movement. Got to build a movement. Yes.
What is the process for getting county commissioners to deal with the voting thing? Because in a conversation I had with one of the county commissioners, I was basically told that that was not their purview.
That was not what?
Their purview. In other words, they didn't have...
They approved the budget.
They didn't have any control over the election.
They control the budget.
Okay? Would you mind going through that?
So what if they say we're not paying for the machines?
There you go.
In Shasta County, the first objection, the clerk said, well, I can't even get poll watchers out. How are we going to get people out to count these ballots? Well, we had a team. This is why you follow the 7 steps. We had a team that had done the research. We said, here are 350 volunteers we've already got to sign up to count the ballots by hand. We already know what they're going to say. Save the money. So your commissioners can save money. That makes them look good. In Shasta County, they needed to drill a new well, and they needed the money too.
We've been trying to find money here for the sheriff's department, and this is one way to do it.
Build a movement.
So do we have an idea of how much money we would save in this county?
How come you don't know that? That was the point I made earlier. How come you don't know what you're paying for your elections? How come you don't know that? Shouldn't it be a line item or clearly in your county budget? FOIA your budget. Find out how much you're paying. Find out how much your sheriff needs. What if they're the same amount? Woohoo! You got a movement. We need the money for the sheriff's department. So all of us citizens are going to step up and we're going to do the hand counting. We don't need the machines anymore. We're going to save the money and we're going to get good sheriffs or whatever it is. You see what I mean? That's a public move. That's you being the government. Did I answer your question?
Pretty much.
But notice that I have to change the way you're thinking. Because everybody thinks, oh, we're going to show evidence and they're going to change. No. You are going to be the government. You're going to start acting like the government. You're going to find the fraud yourself. You're going to investigate the fraud yourself. You're going to count the ballots yourself. But that's a different way of thinking than we've all been conditioned into this other way of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that a part of what you said is that the people, we all expect the people we choose to lead us to lead.
Yeah.
Well, they lead where they want to go. They don't lead where we want to go, right? They're bad leaders.
If they were real representatives, they would.
Right. But they also, like you've already said, I'm just going to reiterate to help answer the question for, I forget his name, but anyway.
Yeah.
Is they won't do it. If we keep expecting them to do it, when
Right.
we already know they haven't done it.
That's why I told you the story. They know, and they're not going to change it.
They're not going to change
It has to be us, and that's the process.
Like the Tea Party.
Yeah, it's like a tea party. It's absolutely like a tea party.
So you're saying if we convert this county, we can infect other counties in this state?
Yeah, buddy. I know there's a county up in the Sisters. I know that they'd be soon behind you. Everybody seems to be afraid. Why are you afraid of your own government? That's a symptom, right?
They have power.
Who has the power? Read your own preamble in your own Constitution. All the power is we the people. But you see, that's why I'm saying you're upside down. You're upside down, and you've forgotten that. And I'm picking on me too. I'm lecturing, I'm preaching to myself too. We've forgotten that. We're upside down and we kowtow to the government. No, they work for us. We have the power. We're the sovereigns. But we've just forgotten that. Yeah. Yes, sir.
There's a whole series of videotapes, red, white, and blueprint of what they did in Shasta County. It's online, just punch in red, white, and blueprint. You'll find that they got a whole, I think there's 9 videos of what they did in Shasta County.
I like to say in Shasta County, people say the director of that movement, she'll tell everybody, oh yeah, Doctor, we couldn't have done it without Dr. Frank. But I got to tell you, that was easy there because we already had an amazing grassroots team that was already active. All I had to do was just feed them the information they need and point them in the right way, and they accomplished it. And that's what I told Holly today. Your county totally reminds me of Shasta. Exactly reminds me of Shasta. You already have an excellent grassroots team. You already have activated people. You already have one commissioner I bet you we can flip. And you see where I'm going? You have everything you need here. It's just, all I have to do is point you and throw gasoline on that fire. And I think, and I'll help you. And wait till I show you your own roles. I was just bringing up your roles. I can tell you, everybody who's voted in your past elections, this is going to be fun. I'm going to give copies of this to Holly before I leave, and you can all start doing door knocking and finding the fraud and how bad your roles are and everything. What else? Yes, sir.
So we struggled with having a good piece of software that we could use as a party for calling and blocking the precincts.
Yeah.
And we just got canceled by our last company that we had. They literally said, we don't want you as a client anymore because you're too conservative. And
well, I just gave you all the data.
right. So, but my point is, yeah, sure, but we need a piece of software that isn't from the Secretary of State, because we tried that before and we found out that the Secretary of State's data is garbage. So we're calling a bunch of dead people. We're calling, and those spouse answers and said, oh, my husband died 7 years ago. And now we're in an awkward moment because we're a Republican volunteer talking to a poor spouse that's now reminded of their deceased loved one, and it's awkward, and volunteers are having a hassle and we're wasting time. But it felt like it was intentional. When we got our data from the Secretary of State, and to be honest with you, and I've seen data and I've worked with data, it looked skewed to make us fail.
Right.
And I'm not saying that, I'm not accusing them, I'm just saying that's what it looks like.
It looks like that, yeah. I'm going to give you the good data that you'll be able to use, because these are the data that Rihanna uses to run your election. So you're going to have the data, and you don't need software. I've sorted them by address already. This list I sorted by age for you. So the oldest person in your county to the youngest, and it shows this person's inactive, so they're probably just still in the rolls, but they've been dead for a while. Here's an active person, and I was surprised, but Jim told me, yeah, you have one of the oldest people in the country here, 111 years old, and she's still an active voter. She didn't vote in these recent elections, interestingly, but you get the point. So I've got it sorted by age. Why did I sort by age? In San Joaquin County, California, we're about to flip them. We just had a big gathering. We're building a big movement there next. I think San Joaquin's next after Shasta. We had 2 ladies. All they did all day long is start from the oldest to youngest, which is why I did this list, and just start looking up every person. And what happens is it's like you look them up on findagrave.com, on ancestry.com, all these places, and you just look up every voter starting from oldest to youngest. And the first 2,700 it's a big county, 350,000 voters. First 2,700 they looked up, they found 49 dead voters. People who voted, but they were dead at the time that the vote was cast. So that's a simple way to find. So here, I'm just going to give you the list. So somebody who just likes to sit in front of a computer all day can look up some of these. That's just one way to look. Another way to look is by address. I was working on this. This is rough. I'm still working on it this afternoon. I'll be done tomorrow. It'll lump them together, so everybody at the same address, and you'll be able to see these are 2 are voters and none of these are voters, but there's one sticking out there. And why? Those people haven't lived there yet. There's a ballot cast from that address. Let's go check that out. And it'll concentrate your search. And when you use this methodology, my experience around the country has been 1 in 3 of the doors you knock on will have fraud. So our goal is not to clean the rolls. Our goal is not to find all the fraud. Our goal is to get 50 smacking clean, perfect, undisputable cases of fraud for us to go public with. So find 100, let's narrow it down to 50 clean, perfect cases and go and use that as our sword. And then we'll keep getting more because we're going to be doing evangelism. We're going to be building the movement. But we're going to try to find 50 right away. Because as soon as you got 50 actually unassailable cases of fraud in your hand, you're unstoppable. In this county, you're unstoppable. So that's my first goal. Keep the main thing. Stay focused. Don't try to clean the rolls. Find fraud. And then we have set up the team and plan a strategy, a war strategy, and that'll help. How am I doing? All right. Anything else? Yeah.
Well, our last election was...
The mayor recall?
No, I'm talking about the gubernatorial election. It was close enough that this type of fraud would have made a difference and we would have had a different governor.
Yeah, and that's important.
And that concerns all of us in the state and in this room. And there's one other thing that I know you're kind of nationally focused also, but I wanted to ask you, not to end the speak tonight, but Kevin McCarthy got taken down.
I heard about that today.
Speakers forum today.
People are waking up.
And so I wanted to know how that has an effect on what you're doing here.
I've met with some of our legislators and congressmen and senators, and I'll just tell you a short story. I was in Texas, and I met with a guy in a private residence with 2 or 3 of them and a hostess. And as we were walking to the door to say goodbye, I was shaking his hand, and he looked at me in the eye, and he says, "Dr. Frank," he says, "you have no idea the forces you're up against." So, and there's no way I can fight the national battle, but I am planting seeds with a few of the warriors up there. Building, I'm running ahead, kind of informing that strategy, but really, we're not winning that way. We're winning from the bottom up. Did I sort of answer your question? Sort of? I mean, I still meet with people at the top. I do it all the time because I need to, because it's kind of like laying the groundwork for what's happening.
I kind of wanted to get your opinion on Kevin McCarthy and leadership.
Not my friend.
No, that's not.
I don't like him. No.
If his lips are moving, he's lying.
And you know, 3 years ago, I was a guy in my lab in Ohio, okay? Now I've had dinner with the real president. I've spent a lot of time with a lot of key people in the country. And I've learned, one of the lessons I've learned is that my impressions are completely wrong about these people. When I meet them in person, they're not who I thought they were. Like, for example, Kristi Noem is a loser, evil human being, okay? And I thought she was the bomb, okay? Until I met her and until I saw what she was doing in her estate. She's evil. Her AG was my favorite AG in the whole country. She got him impeached on false charges. He was completely exonerated legally. He was completely exonerated by the investigative committee of her assembly, of her legislature. She got all the Democrats riled and a few turncoat Republicans and got him kicked out. You know why? Because he was investigating her. She's evil. Also, she wouldn't hug Nellie.
That's a good sign.
My daughter is the best rudder ever. I'm telling you, if she was here, everybody in this room would be smiling. She's the sweetest, cutest thing ever, so innocent, so charming. And if she comes in the room, whoever rushes up to her, those are the good people in that room. You could just immediately tell. You know, Eric Trump was sitting on the lawn doing patty cake with her. He was sitting in Indian style on the lawn. That's Eric Trump for you, right? That tells you about him, yes? And Candace Owens, they're huggy all over each other, and you get the idea. So I don't make opinions about people until I meet them in person, unless their behavior, like Kevin McCarthy's behavior, is not what we want. Yeah, let me answer her and then you. Yeah, Heidi.
Yeah, the thing I don't feel like I can do anything about the federal government myself. But locally, that's why I've.
Fix is
gotten
local.
involved. Yeah, I feel like I can have an effect.
You
by
can.
Pounding on doors and
Yes.
talking to people and all this kind of stuff.
100%.
But nationally, it's just, I don't hardly even read about them anymore.
Organize the churches, organize the Rotary Club, get the Lions Club, get the local businesses, business commerce. Organize your community around this and take back your government. Be Josephine County. Do that. And then your whole, then there'll be another one that didn't quite have the resources you did here that'll glom on, and you'll get 3 or 4 counties, and that's going to be awesome. Let's change your state. I'll make you a commitment. You get this county flipped, I'll get you Mike here. And I'll be able to bring you people like, 45 and things.
So, to tag on to the gentleman's question back there, if I may, I just want to draw a parallel for your question about Kevin McCarthy and what Dr. Frank just showed us. In my opinion, and just being an observer of politics, this was a very, very good sign for our country. Because just like Dr. Frank is saying, what we could do in Oregon and make that change, the seed to start the change, same with Shasta County.
National effect.
Exactly, but it also shows accountability. Because what most of us who love justice have been crying for since Benghazi, since 9/11, since all this stuff, is there's not justice. But when somebody is held to account like McCarthy just was, doesn't that give you hope? Doesn't
Yes.
that give you a feeling? Because these people that work for us, right, that we put them up there to help run the country, and they're failing, they think they can get away with failing
Right.
and love it. And they get paid the same, they don't get fired, they just keep doing the same old, right? But once you hold somebody accountable,
Yeah.
I feel like in our heart and in our spirit, we go, yes, this
Yes.
is justice. And so I think that ties in with what we're trying to
Yes.
accomplish in little old Josephine County.
Little old Josephine County. You can change the whole country, little old Josephine County.
Exactly.
Shasta County has inspired counties all over the country.
Right.
Okay, I've got another half dozen just because of them.
Right. So doesn't that make sense though that
100% accountability. Oh yeah, yes. Hi.
I just had a quick
Go.
share. When David went against Goliath, he picked up 5 stones, and Goliath had 5 brothers. And David inspired, it said he had a bunch of people that was like, I can't remember the exact word, but it was like losers and people who were struggling, that were following him initially, but then they became mighty. And it says that many of his people became giant killers because of the example that he provided. So I want to say thank you and God bless you, Dr. Frank.
You're welcome.
For doing what you're doing, and don't get discouraged. And
I'm not.
I really feel like we have our PCP meetings here. And the last time there was a lot of divisiveness and things going on, and people were saying, I'm tired of losing. Nobody likes losing. But we learn from it, and we go on and learn to encourage and pray for the people that are in our leadership. They're not perfect, but they're doing awesome, and they're giving it 100%. And we need to just be positive and be hopeful. And I'm not talking about blowing sunshine at somebody's butt. I'm talking about legitimate, put your time into praying, put your time into doing research, and do the thing that God gifted you to do or that you feel called to do with 100% effort, and it will change, and there will be consequences, good or bad. It's just the nature. There's reaping and sowing. So don't give up and don't think you can't do anything, because everybody can do something. And I hope and pray that you have people in your lives that are praying for you, because I'm sure you are under attack, and they don't say that to discourage you.
No,
They say that to encourage you, because God is the person. God is the only one that matters. And in Revelation, it's the only book of the Bible that promises a blessing for people who read it. And it says, to the one who overcomes, who will inherit these things. But for the cowardly and unbelieving, abominable murderers and sexually immoral persons, sorcerers and all idolaters and all liars, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire. So they're going to be accountable. They might be getting away with it for days, months, weeks, decades, Biden time, I don't know. But I'm just saying, there is going to be an accounting someday, and we don't have to concern ourselves with that in a sense of like tossing and turning and losing sleep. It's going to be taken care of. We are responsible. I'm the only person that's going to stand before God on that day and give an account for what I did with my time and my talent and my treasures. And it's the same for every one of us. And I don't say that. I say it to encourage you.
Right.
Don't get discouraged. Don't think I'm too small, I'm too dumb, too whatever. Go for it.
Can I just say one thing to that? Can I say one thing? I want to say one thing to that, and that's that I've been in 800 counties. And I'm very excited about this county.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I am not giving a negative message. I'm definitely giving you a positive message, and I am definitely saying you guys are the county of Oregon, in my opinion. Okay, and I've been in a lot of.
I'm saying thank you because you're a
Yes,
bright light.
I'm very optimistic.
Well, I was going to say, the nation's eyes are on Grant's Pass. We have 2 legislations that are going before the Supreme Court. We have the injunction, that's going before the Supreme Court. The whole nation is watching to see what's going on in Grants Pass, what's going to happen there. And then we also have the 2 teachers that were fired, and that's going before the Supreme Court. So the nation is looking at us. We can make a difference if we do this right and
Yes.
sway public opinion.
Just be the government.
Mount up, everybody. It's going to be a rough ride. Thank you
Yeah.
to Mike Jones for doing a recording for us tonight, and Douglas Frank, being the greatest guy.
Thank you.
He is the greatest.
Thank you.
He's given his whole life for this.
Thank you.
I'll give a couple of bills out there, and he's going to be in town tomorrow. If you want to stop by the office, you might be able to shake his hand.